Welcome to Reddit Stories, where Karen replaces her employee with AI and gets what she deserves. Karen replaced me with AI, and it ended up being a complete disaster. I'm a school secretary, or at least I was. I worked in the front office of a public elementary school for nearly 12 years. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved it. Every day was different. I handled late arrivals, parent calls, medication logs, bus schedule changes, field trip permission slips, all of it. I was the first face kids saw when they walked in scared or sick, and the person parents called when they needed help but didn't know where to start. I wasn't a teacher, but I cared deeply about those kids and about that school. About 5 months ago, we got a new district hire who we'll call Karen. She was officially called a Digital Efficiency Coordinator, and her job was to find ways to save money by updating our tech. Her first visit to our school felt like a TED Talk that nobody asked for. She walked into our staff meeting and started talking about data optimization, automated scheduling, AI-powered messaging systems, the kind of corporate buzzwords that make your eyes glaze over. Karen announced the district had approved a pilot program that would roll out AI tools to replace certain redundant tasks in school offices. She said it would free up human resources for more meaningful engagement, which is corporate speak for "we're cutting staff." A month later, I was told my position would be phased out by the end of the semester. I'd be reassigned to another school, basically doing filing and supply ordering. No more student interaction, no more front office. I was crushed. I didn't raise a fuss. I packed up my little corner of the office and hugged the teachers goodbye. The principal didn't want me to go, but it wasn't his call. I left quietly and I tried to move on. The new AI system was supposed to handle attendance, parent notifications, medication alerts, scheduling, everything I used to do. Karen trained a couple of staff members to supervise the system, but made it clear it was designed to run independently. For the first few weeks, it worked well enough, but then things started slipping through the cracks. A student who was late wasn't marked present, so their mom got an alert saying he was absent. She showed up at the school in a panic. Another day, a kid with asthma went to the nurse's office and his inhaler wasn't in the system. Turns out, it had been incorrectly logged under another student with the same last name. The nurse had to call the parent manually to figure it out. A bigger issue happened during a rainy day dismissal. The AI had scrambled the bus assignments due to a last-minute route update. 2 kids got on the wrong bus. Thankfully, both drivers caught it quickly, but it scared the living daylights out of the parents. Still, the district brushed it off. Karen said the AI was still learning and that growing pains are expected. But then came the situation that really hit hard. 2 students were scheduled for an IEP evaluation. That's a special needs support plan. It had taken months to get the appointments lined up. The AI mistakenly flagged them as absent. Nobody followed up because the system was trusted to be accurate. Their evaluations were missed. It pushed their support back by weeks. That was when parents started complaining. Some directly to the principal, others to the district. A few teachers started quietly texting me, asking how I used to handle things. I helped where I could, unofficially. Eventually, the principal called me and asked if I'd be willing to come in for a couple of days to help sort through some of the mess. I said sure. I went in, pulled old records, corrected mismatches, helped retrain some staff on how to manually verify things instead of blindly trusting the system. Within a week, the front office was running smoother again. Not perfect, but better. Karen found out I was back and she wasn't thrilled. She accused me of undermining the pilot. The principal stood up for me, saying I was only helping get things back on track. A few parents wrote letters to the district praising how quickly the school responded after I returned. After all this, the district announced they were putting the AI rollout on pause. Karen wasn't fired, but she was moved to a more behind-the-scenes role. And I was offered a part-time position back at my school, focusing on training and overseeing office operations. It's not quite what I had before, but it's something. AI can be helpful, but it shouldn't replace the people who care, who pay attention, who actually know the students by name and face. You can teach a system to send alerts and cross-check spreadsheets, but it can't hear the worry in a parent's voice or notice when a kid's face doesn't look quite right. I don't hate Karen. I think she meant well, but she forgot the one thing that makes schools work: people, not programs. I'm so glad you got your job back and that Karen got the boot. Schools are the last place that should be replacing people with AI. Students need to be around staff who actually care about their well-being, and that staff deserves so much more credit than they actually get. It used to be a dream of mine to be a teacher one day, to be the person who's there for those students who are going through something and who need to feel like someone actually cares. But with how poorly teachers are treated these days, I can't see how people still go into it. Update 1 month later. It's been about a month since everything changed, and I've got some great news. The district officially offered me my old job back, and I didn't hesitate for a second. I said yes. Things are running better than ever now. Since I returned, I've been in charge of monitoring and retraining the AI system we kept, and the results have honestly surprised everyone. Because the tool learns from user interactions, it's slowly been adapting to how I communicate, calmly, clearly, and with empathy. The teachers say they can feel the difference. Now, when they use the chatbot assistant, it responds smoothly and politely, without any of the cold, glitchy tone it had before. One teacher even showed me on her phone how it greets her with, "Good morning, how's your day going? What can I help with?" She laughed and said, "I don't know what you did to it, but it's so much nicer now." That comment made me curious. I looked through the system's configuration files and realized that since my profile was assigned as the main training account, the system had been shaping itself around how I work. I skimmed through some of the rules it had generated based on my habits, things like always treat students and staff with respect, prioritize well-being, and respond with patience. It even had small touches that mirrored how I talk to people. Seeing that reminded me that technology really does reflect the people behind it, the way we use it, the tone, the words, the patience we show. It feeds back into how it behaves. That's the difference between a tool that feels robotic and one that feels human. So far, we haven't had a single major error since I returned. The staff seems happier, the communication flows better, and even the principal said the whole building feels calmer. Maybe that's all coincidence, maybe not. Either way, I'll take it. For now, I'm just grateful to be back where I belong, making sure that the technology we use actually helps people without replacing the heart that keeps the whole place running. You know, Karen, some people think AI is a magical button they can push to do everything for them. But the truth is, without real human care behind it, eventually it just falls apart.
Exactly. You can't replace someone who cares with something that just calculates. You might get answers, but you lose the connection. And that's what people actually need.
Entitled sister-in-law thinks my kids aren't real family and ruins a wedding photo. Some quick background. I'm married to my wonderful husband, who's an incredible stepdad to my 2 kids from a previous relationship. They adore him and call him Dad. He's been there for them in every way that matters. My husband's brother just got married. My husband was one of the groomsmen, and since it was a family affair, our kids came along to the church ceremony. The reception was adults only, so we had arranged for a babysitter to pick them up afterward. After the ceremony, I was walking the kids out to the car to meet the sitter. Then my husband came running out, waving his arms and telling me to wait. The photographer was gathering everyone for the big official family portraits on the risers, and we were needed. So I brought the kids back in. The photographer placed all of us, me, my husband, and our 2 kids, into the group photo with the entire extended family. It took maybe 5 minutes. Everyone smiled, the photographer clicked a few shots, and then I left with the kids. By the time I got to the reception, I could already tell something was off. The atmosphere felt cold. My husband's entire family was suddenly distant, and people kept avoiding eye contact. Finally, my husband cornered his sister to ask what was going on. That's when it all came out. Apparently, my sister-in-law was furious at me because I had allowed my kids to be in the family photo. Her 2 toddlers hadn't been at the ceremony, so in her mind, my kids' presence made the photo incomplete and ruined. Then she said the thing that made my jaw drop.
Besides, they aren't even blood. They shouldn't have been in the family photo to begin with.
The worst part? The rest of the family backed her up. They all agreed that I should have known better and that my kids had no business being in that picture. Every single bit of blame got thrown at me, even though my husband was the one who called us back inside. The cherry on top? My mother-in-law actually called the photographer the next day to cancel that group photo entirely. She decided it was better to have no photo at all than one with her step-grandchildren in it. I couldn't believe it. I tried calling my sister-in-law later, hoping to clear the air or at least get some kind of an explanation. Instead, she launched straight into a rant about all my supposed issues, and her biggest complaint was that my husband and I were too romantic at family events because we sometimes hold hands. So that's what this all came down to. Because my husband wanted his stepkids in one photo with him, his sister decided she had the right to dictate who counts as real family, and my mother-in-law tried to erase the moment completely. The entitlement still blows my mind. This is disgusting. Family isn't about blood, it's about love. Your husband stepped up for those kids, and his family should be proud of that, not trying to erase them. Sounds like they're just jealous of the love that you built together. Your mother-in-law canceling the entire photo is unhinged. Imagine being that petty that you'd rather have no family portrait than admit you were wrong. You didn't ruin anything. They did. I'd frame a big picture of the four of you from that same day and hang it proudly in your living room. Let them keep their missing photo and their bitterness. Update. Thanks everyone. I wanted to post this story because I never got any validation when it happened 25 years ago. And wow, you guys delivered. It's the 25th anniversary of that day, and seeing so many people understand what I went through has meant more than I can say. A few people asked what happened afterward, so here's the full story. Right after that phone call with my sister-in-law, where she doubled down and refused to apologize, I decided to try the high road. I took flowers to her house the next day. I once had a falling out with my own sister years before, and she did that for me. It humbled me, made me realize I'd been wrong, and helped us make peace. I hoped maybe the gesture would have the same effect here. It didn't. My sister-in-law never budged, never said sorry, and never acknowledged what she had done. To this day, the whole thing has been swept under the rug. Nobody in the family ever talks about it. When we see each other, she and I talk like distant acquaintances, polite, civil, but nothing deeper. I laugh with her sometimes at gatherings, but it's all surface level. It's water under the bridge, I guess. A bridge I still sometimes wish she'd jump off of. Now here's where it gets interesting. A few days after the wedding, the photographer called my mother-in-law. She was the one paying for the photos. He told her all of the pictures on the thumb drive had been lost, every single one. To this day, the only surviving professional photo from that wedding is one of the bride and groom. That's it. It hangs in their house. I guess the photographer figured out that this family reeked of drama and decided to give them what they deserved. God bless that man. And yes, my brother-in-law and his wife never would have cared or noticed until my sister-in-law made a scene. Once she started the drama though, they fell right in line. About a year later, I found out through another family member that my brother-in-law's wife had actually written a nasty letter to our priest before the wedding, asking him to cut the ceremony short because she only cared about the party. He never told anyone and went ahead with the full ceremony anyway. And yes, he even showed up to the reception afterward, sitting at our table. The man had class. As for my husband and me, we did fight about it at the time. Or rather, I fought with him. He admitted that being the youngest in the family made him feel helpless, and I guess that was true. He didn't know how to stand up to them back then. He's a good man, but he was raised to keep the peace, even when it meant swallowing his pride. Over the years, though, he grew a lot. Nothing like that has ever happened again on his watch. Today, we've been married for decades. We're empty nesters now, successful in our work and in love. We still hold hands, and we still travel the world together. We've had our share of ups and downs, but we've always been a team. We stayed involved with his family, believe it or not. There was just this unspoken agreement to keep acting like family. They came to our home for gatherings, and we went to theirs. But my husband and I never got close to them again. There was loyalty, yes, but not warmth. His parents did change in their own quiet way. They never apologized, but they showed loyalty to us through gestures. They always remembered birthdays, always sent gifts for our kids. Over time, the anger faded, and what was left was this awkward kind of peace. Our kids grew up surrounded by love. They adored their grandparents despite everything. My daughter used to sit next to her grandpa during family movie nights and gently pat his forehead until he fell asleep. Both kids always ended phone calls with, "I love you." They chose kindness when others didn't. And here's what's poetic. My husband's sister's kids, the ones who were supposedly the real family, never showed their grandparents that kind of love. They grew up cold and detached, watching their mother scream at their cheating father. My sister-in-law eventually divorced him 2 years ago, long after the damage was done. Her son is getting married soon, and her daughter already has a baby with a man who refuses to marry her because he's not ready to settle down. I don't say that to gloat. It just shows how kids pick up what they're shown. My husband's parents are both 87 now, both dealing with dementia. We still visit and try to help. They're stubborn, but we do what we can. I guess love really is a choice. On our last trip home, we visited my brother-in-law and his wife. After all these years, she still refuses to get on an airplane because she's terrified it'll crash. They've never traveled, never seen the world. My brother-in-law once told my husband he wishes they could. He's wanted to leave her because of this, but he never will. I ducked into their study at one point and saw the lone wedding photo still hanging on the wall, the one of just the two of them. I stood there for a second, took a breath, and walked on down the hallway. Some things don't need words. Time has already said enough. The photographer losing every single photo except one of the bride and groom feels like the universe stepping in with poetic justice. Your in-laws spent all that energy trying to erase two innocent kids from one picture, and in the end, they erased themselves. The best part is, you didn't even have to lift a finger. Time handled it for you. This was honestly beautiful to read. You didn't let bitterness win. You stayed kind, raised loving kids, and built a good marriage while they were all too busy stewing in judgment. It says a lot that your children showed compassion to the same grandparents who once tried to exclude them. That's real family. That's the lesson they never learned. It's amazing how life sorts itself out. Your sister-in-law mocked what she didn't have: love, stability, genuine affection, and now she's living with the results of her own choices. Meanwhile, you've got decades of peace and a husband who grew into someone strong enough to stand by you. You didn't just survive that wedding photo drama, you outlived it in the best possible way. So, the family that wanted a perfect photo ended up with none, and the woman they tried to cut out built the happiest life of all.
That's what happens when you treat love like a checklist instead of something you show.
Funny how time keeps receipts better than any camera ever could.
And this one developed beautifully.
Am I the jerk for telling my parents that I'll take them to the cleaners? Before anything, yes, that's exactly what I told them. And no, I wasn't joking. By the way, this is a throwaway account because some of my family has my main one. For context, I'm 28 now. My mom, Jen, is 50, and my stepdad, Brian, is 56. They've been together since I was 11, though to this day, I still can't tell you how long they were actually dating before that. When she introduced him to us, it wasn't some gradual thing. One day, she sat my sister and me down at the kitchen table and said she had someone she wanted us to meet. The next week, Brian was moving in. That was it. No warning, no easing us in, just, here's this man, he'll be living here now. My sister, Ruth, who was a year younger than me, immediately left the table and locked herself in her room. My brother, Tom, was out that day. So there I was, sitting across from my mom while she smiled like nothing was wrong, asking me if I was okay with this. It didn't matter what I said. Brian moved in anyway. Things went downhill quickly. Brian was one of those men who always had to be in control of everything around him. If I finished my homework before dinner, he'd say something like, "Only someone stupid would think homework is more important than eating first." If I was in the living room watching TV, he'd tell me I should be in my bedroom because kids don't need to be seen everywhere. He loved calling me stupid, said it so casually it almost sounded like my name. My mom never defended me. If I complained about him, she'd change the subject or say I was too sensitive. When she and Brian would argue, he'd threaten to move away and start over without us. He said it so often, it became a running joke in my head. I used to think maybe he would, and I'd finally get to breathe again. He made it clear we weren't his kids. We were baggage that came with the woman he actually wanted. Once we got old enough, he stopped pretending to care. He and my mom went on holidays 3 times a year while we stayed home. The last time we went anywhere as a family was when I was 10 and a bridesmaid for my godmother's wedding. That was the year before Brian showed up. By the time I turned 18, I couldn't take it anymore. I got a small apartment and moved out. Tom and Ruth wanted to come with me, but Jen wouldn't allow it, and I couldn't legally fight for them. I barely had enough money to live on my own, much less become a guardian. There was only one thing I left behind: my book collection. It wasn't just books from the library or paperbacks I'd picked up. It was my inheritance. Some of them were first editions, rare comics, and antique volumes, the kind of collection that appreciates over time. When I got older, I had them valued, 7 figures total. I couldn't store them properly in my apartment, so I left them in the family home. My mom promised to keep them safe. She had always respected that collection. Even when Brian made fun of me for it, she never touched my books, so I trusted her. That was my mistake. Earlier today, I was driving home from seeing a friend and called Tom. He'd been over at Jen's house to pick up some of his things, and I asked him to check on my books. Jen and I had talked recently about getting the last few authenticated. While we were on the phone, I heard him ask Brian about them. Brian laughed and said, "What books? My books?" I froze. Tom asked again, and Brian repeated, "My books?" I told Tom, still on the phone, to ask what he meant by that. Brian said, "They're ours now. We bought them." My heart dropped. I called my mom immediately. No answer. When she finally called back hours later, Brian had already gotten to me first. He called me a liar, said Ruth's old books were his too, even though she sold hers years ago. I never sold any of mine, not one. Every book in that collection was paid for by me or inherited. Jen didn't buy me a single one. When I finally spoke to her, she admitted they were mine, but she refused to confront him. She said she didn't want to start another fight. I lost it. I told her that she had spent years letting him walk all over her and that she had let him take everything from me growing up. I said she failed as a parent and that I wouldn't let her fail as a human being too. I told her if she didn't give them back, I would take her and Brian to the cleaners. I would report them for theft, sue them, and cut them out of my life for good. She cried. Brian yelled in the background, calling me every name under the sun. I hung up. I already contacted my lawyer. I'm not asking for legal advice. I just want to know if I went too far, because right now, I don't feel like I did. Not even close to being the bad guy here. They emotionally neglected you for years, and now they're trying to steal from you on top of that? That's not family. That's theft and manipulation. Good for you for standing up for yourself. Do you have proof that the books were left to you? You should go straight to the police. Have them escort you when you collect your property. Don't give any warning. This is what happens when parents enable terrible partners and expect their kids to just deal with it. Your mom let that man destroy every bit of trust she had with her own kids, and now she's shocked that you're treating her like a stranger. She had 20 years to do right by you. You were justified in every word. I can't get over the audacity of Brian claiming those books were his. That's pure entitlement. People like him think they can rewrite ownership just by yelling louder. He sounds like the kind of guy who thinks possession is 9/10 of the law means I yell loud enough and it's mine. Good on you for lawyering up before he tried to sell them. Update. It's been a little over 2 weeks, but it's felt like an eternity. The short version is I got my books back, every single one. Not a scratch on them. And no, I didn't have to sue my parents. When I wrote my first post, I had already hired a solicitor. My mom, Jen, tried calling both my siblings afterward, hoping they had convinced me to drop it. Ruth told her flat out that she hoped I followed through with it. Tom agreed. They both knew Brian wasn't going to stop until someone stood up to him. Apparently, Brian was furious. Tom said he heard him shouting about me, calling me ungrateful, selfish, and worse. 2 days later, my lawyer sent them an official notice. After that, all communication went through the firm. Jen tried to play peacekeeper. She told Brian that if he wanted to keep my books, he'd have to pay me the market value plus 30%. He refused. He said they were already his and that I wouldn't win in court. He had no idea I had every document, receipt, and appraisal. A few days later, Jen reached out to my lawyer privately and said she wanted me to come collect everything. She promised Brian would be out of town. When I showed up, his car wasn't there. The house was quiet. I walked past Jen without saying a word and went straight to the storage room. The door was still locked the way I had left it years ago, and everything inside was untouched. She had never let him have access. I'll give her that much credit. It took hours to load everything into the van. Jen kept following me around, talking about how sorry she was and how she wished things had been different. I didn't respond. I left the house key on the counter when I was done. She told me to keep it just in case. I told her she could keep the house. That place hasn't felt like home since I was 11. Every corner of it reminds me of how small I felt growing up there. I don't know if she and Brian have argued about what happened. I don't care. I have my books back. They don't know my address, and I have zero plans to ever step foot in that house again. She looked sad when I left. I didn't feel angry anymore, just tired. I'll be talking to my therapist soon. I think it's time I unpack what all this really meant. But as far as I'm concerned, the case is closed. That ending was way more powerful than a courtroom win. You got what mattered most, and they got to keep exactly what they deserve, each other. It's amazing how quiet real closure feels. Not shouting, not revenge, just peace. I'm proud of you for walking out with your head high. Your mom had a chance to choose her children, and she chose comfort instead. She kept enabling a bully, and now she's stuck with one. You didn't just recover your inheritance, you broke a cycle that's been going on for years. That's huge. Honestly, this could have ended so much worse. You kept your composure, let your lawyer handle it, and got out clean. Most people don't get that kind of closure when dealing with narcissistic parents. The fact that you walked away without burning down your own peace says everything about how far you've come. Man, Brian really thought yelling "mine" was a legal strategy.
Yeah, like kindergarten rules applied to million-dollar books.
OP didn't just win her case, she won her peace.
And the best part? She didn't need to burn bridges, just quietly drive off with the whole library.
My Karen sister stole from my mother's house on Thanksgiving. I'm 29, female. My sister, who's 37, is an addict and a thief. She has not gone to jail because she mostly just steals from family and friends. Her husband is also a dirtbag, and their 2 kids are headed the same way. I will not allow them in my house. I will only meet with them in public. I always bring just enough cash to pay my bill of wherever we eat together, and I don't bring anything else. I don't know why she is this way. Both my brother, who's 33, and myself have turned out okay. We have educations and careers. We have stable relationships. We're reasonably well-behaved adults, and our kids are a pretty good bunch. My sister just never grew up. She hated rules. She hated that my parents got her to watch me when I was young. She moved out when she was 18, took her education savings account, and spent it traveling around. I was going to host Thanksgiving this year, and my mom mentioned that my sister and her family would be in town. They have not visited for 4 years. She asked me to include them. I said no. I said that wasn't going to happen. So my mom said she wanted her whole family together so her and my dad would host. Well, she just called me. A bunch of stuff is now missing from her house. Jewelry, sports memorabilia, knickknacks, stuff that would be easy to sell on eBay or to pawn. I snorted and asked her if she remembered why I do not allow my sister in my house. She said that when I allowed her to stay with me, she stole cash from me and her kids stole my stepson's video games. I asked her why she thought they wouldn't steal from her, and she said that I'm being cruel to rub it in when all she wanted was family time. Not the jerk. Your sister is 37 with what seems like a long history of thievery, and your mom wanted you to bear that burden by asking you to host. Then she was shocked and surprised when the known thieves stole her stuff. My oh my, who could have seen it coming? Given your sister's age, I'm gonna guess your mom isn't a naive teenager and absolutely knows better. Her wanting to see her daughter, to have a big family get-together, it doesn't mean that she gets to not have her mistakes pointed out. What would she have said if you had caved and your sister had stolen from you? Oh no, please don't call the cops. I'll go on a limb and infer that your mother's behavior has something to do with how your sister turned out. Not the jerk. She's not thinking outside of the box of family time. Meeting at restaurants, coffee shops, parks, if the weather is good, would all be great for family time without letting them into her home. I found out my boyfriend has hooked up with several of his coworkers. My boyfriend, Ben, who's 28, and I, 25 female, have been dating for almost 2 years now. While our relationship is not perfect, it's pretty darn close. Our biggest disagreement was when I switched oat milk brands and he kept forgetting and buying the other brand. We're both quite naturally calm people, and we prefer a constructive discussion to a heated argument. This is why what happened last week caught me off guard. Towards the beginning of our relationship, when we weren't exclusive, Ben had a fling with a coworker. Let's call her Steph. He's the head of IT at a major firm, and she works in a different department, so they only see each other occasionally. Even more so now that he has switched to remote work 2 days a week. When he told me about their fling, and I talked to my friends about it, they said I wasn't allowed to be bothered about it, as our relationship wasn't defined at the time, and they only hooked up once. Some days I will fixate on it and wonder if he talked to Steph at work and if she still fancied him. I know I'm not allowed to monitor his interactions with anyone and would never try to control him, but it does make me feel something when I think about him even being near her. I don't know if it's jealousy or insecurity, or even if it's rational. Anyway, last week we got invited to a dinner party hosted by his boss. I'd been to a couple of his office parties before, but only interacted with a couple of people, and usually I was glued to his side all night since I'm a bit of an introvert. From my immediate impression, Ben's boss is a bit of a rich jerk, but he knew how to throw a good enough party that I began to loosen up and interact with more than 2 people all night. As a teacher, I've always felt insecure around people who make so much more money than me and always felt like they looked down on me, but that couldn't have been further from the truth. I was immediately included on the inside jokes, made a couple of my own, and even got invited to a double date with one of his coworkers and his wife. While Ben was grabbing me some food, one of his friends made a passing comment about Steph. She was at the party but stayed away from the group we were hanging out with. I said, I don't care about her, but I also have nothing to talk to her about, which is true. I wasn't going to compare notes with her, and the fact that she did stay away from us did put me at ease, and it made me not wary of her. His friend laughed and said, well then, you might feel the same way about Molly. Molly was another coworker of Ben's who I had actually gotten on with the whole night. I was confused and didn't understand what he was trying to say. When he saw my reaction, he completely clammed up, but I demanded he explain himself. Another one of his friends from the group said that Molly and Ben had hooked up. To say I was shocked is an understatement. I then asked how many other girls Ben had hooked up with from the office, and they told me they know of 4 different girls. At that point, Ben came back, unaware of his friends spilling the secrets, but picked up on the tense atmosphere. Internally, I was fuming and hurt, but I kept a cool facade, and when Ben asked what was wrong, I just looked at him and said, your friends were just informing me that you're the office player. He looked shocked, and I left to go to the bathroom to calm down. I knew if I stayed at this party any longer, I would have a breakdown and I needed to leave. So I went straight to our car and drove home without telling him. When I got back home, I replied to his numerous texts about where I was and told him that I came home and he could find his own way back. He got home around an hour after me, and by that time, I had already cried my feelings out and was ready to have a conversation. He came into the house absolutely livid, which I didn't understand because he was the one who lied to me. He's never even raised his voice at me for anything before, but he was shouting about how I embarrassed him, and word had gotten around to his other coworkers because I reacted immaturely. I tried to explain my position, that how would he feel if he found out I had hooked up with 4 of my coworkers and never told him. He just kept reiterating that he had never had a relationship with them and it was just a hookup. I knew going into our relationship he was way more experienced than me, but I refused to believe he could hook up with these women and not feel anything for them. But that is besides the point, and he should have told me. But all he's hung up on is that I insulted him in front of his friends. When he was done yelling, he said he was going to stay at his brother's house to calm down and not to contact him until he cooled down. I told him I wouldn't contact him first because I'm not in the wrong. He is. It's been a week since he's been at his brother's house, and we still haven't talked. I have no clue where we go from here. Was I wrong to react the way I did? I didn't think I was, but now I'm second-guessing myself. I didn't think calling him the office player would elicit this reaction, but I don't think it was a lie either. Should I apologize or wait for him to make the first move? My issue is not so much with him hooking up with the other women, but hiding it. Where did he lie? Did he tell you that he had only ever hooked up with Steph, or did you assume that she was the only one? Either way, I do think it was really unnecessary to make that comment in front of his coworkers. Your reaction was not a cool facade. OP. We had a discussion about previous partners, and he never mentioned them before. He said he didn't count them as partners and only told me about actual girlfriends he had had. Update. I texted him this morning saying, hey, I know you asked me not to contact you first, but I've given you a week, and it really feels like we need to have a conversation. I hope you've been doing okay. I didn't want to start apologizing or questioning him over text. I did that at about 6:30 before I left for work and was teaching all day, so I knew I wouldn't be able to constantly check my phone. It's lunchtime right now, and he's responded saying he's at work, which is confusing because Friday and Monday are his remote work days, so I don't understand why he's gone in. I texted back and said, we can talk after work if you want to come home, and he agreed. I honestly have no clue how tonight is going to go. I really don't want to break up. I know a lot of you are going to say I don't have a backbone for messaging him first, but I haven't been able to eat or sleep all week, and this has been so mentally and physically exhausting. My workload this week has been crushing, and this added stress has made me reach my limit. Update 2. So I was quite nervous about Ben coming over after work. I was meant to do some work, but was too distracted to even attempt it. I did, however, as a gesture of good faith, decide to cook his favorite meal for him and maybe use it as an icebreaker. I did take someone's advice of writing everything down just so I could keep my thoughts clear. After work, I texted, asking him what time he would be over, and he said he'd text me when he left work, and it takes him about 30 minutes to get home. He got here at about 6 and rang the doorbell, which was weird. He still has his keys. I opened the door, and we kinda awkwardly greeted each other. Immediate impression was that he didn't look angry or upset, just cold. I sat down on the sofa and expected him to join me, but he just stood in the middle of the room with his hands in his trousers. I said I was glad he came over, and he just nodded. Then I said it was weird being in his house by myself all week, and he said he was sure it was. He asked me why I texted him now and not sooner, and I said it was because he told me not to contact him. I told him I'd been miserable and that I was sorry for the comment I made and leaving, and especially for taking his car. He said he didn't give a hoot about the car, just that I had left without telling him. I had a chance to finally explain myself to him. I never cared how many women he had been with before. I had known he was a bit of a player before we got together, and I never held it against him. I just hated being blindsided and feeling like I knew less about my boyfriend than some random coworkers. I asked why he didn't just tell me since he knew I'd be around them, and he said he honestly didn't think it was important and mattered to me. I called BS because he knows how I am and he knew it would matter. He admitted that he does regret hooking up with them, as he never thought about having to bring his future girlfriend around them and tell her about it. 2 of them happened when he first joined the company straight out of uni. One of those girls has left already, and the other is actually dating Ben's friend who told me about Molly. He said at that point of his life, he was fine hooking up and never really thought of the consequences. I asked why his friend decided to even say anything to me about it, and he said they always try to upset each other. And one thing that gets Ben annoyed is when they bring up his player ways. He said after I left, his friends felt bad for what they had said, but I told him I never would have reacted that way if I had known, and he should have told me. He said I was trying to justify my response after apologizing. I told him I didn't want to do that. I do genuinely think what I said and did was wrong, but he can't put all of the blame on me. He said the only thing he could apologize for is hooking up with a bunch of women, and since that was before me, it didn't make any sense. I kept saying it was the hiding bit that upset me, and he asked what difference would it have made if I had known. I did think about that for a moment. I still would have gone, but I think I would have been a bit more hyper-aware of Molly and the other girl. He said he wanted me to be there and to have a good time, and didn't want to ruin it by telling me about irrelevant things from his past, and I guess I understood that sentiment because I decided to let it go. We both were quiet there for a moment, and he asked if I was done, and if I was going to end it, then I needed to pick another reason, since this would be the stupidest reason. I told him I didn't want to break up and that we needed to talk about everything, but I wanted him to come sit next to me, and he did. So I asked if there were any others, and he said no. I asked him who knew in the office, and he said that only his friend group, and they kept their mouths shut to everyone because all of them were doing the same thing. He told me he hooked up with Molly right before we met. I was curious about why he went into work today when it was his remote work day, and he said that his nieces wouldn't let him concentrate at home, so he just decided to go in. He did say he was furious last week and didn't know if he could move forward, but talking to his brother helped and he calmed him down. He said if I didn't text him, he was planning on contacting me first today anyway so we could talk. So we didn't break up. I apologized, and while he didn't, I've decided to let it go and move on. I told him I made his favorite meal, and he finally kissed me and told me that he missed me. Anyway, I know some of you are going to say that he should have dumped me straight away or I should have demanded an apology, but I'm happy with the outcome. I finally had a meal and a good night's sleep. Even Ben said I looked like I had lost weight. My date got me a gift, so I got him fired from his job. I'm 22, female, and at the time of this story, I had just gotten out of a relationship. I started seeing this new guy, 24, male. We'll call him Frank. We went to a bar and we clicked very well. He would then hang out at my place almost 3 times a week where things were amazing. About a month into our friendship/relationship, we were thinking about getting serious. Frank constantly love-bombed me, messaged me every day about how much he loved me, etc. He even came over one day with a gift for me that was in a unique designed glittery gift bag that had crystals, a hoodie, little necklace charms, and baked goods from a store in the mall. We officially started dating, and it was great for a week. Frank sent me a long text message saying, "Oh, I love you so much," and how he would love me forever. Going to bed, I thought nothing of it, just happy someone loved me and expressed it. The next morning, I wake up to another paragraph text, thinking it was another love message. I was wrong. He started off the text with, "I don't love you," and wrote about how he was hooking up with his ex and me at the same time, and that he didn't love her and lied about loving me. I was devastated. Normally, I wouldn't have cared that much, but after being love-bombed for a month by Frank, it stung. Immediately after reading this text, I got suspicious. Some backstory. For the duration of talking to him, he talked horribly about his ex, whom Frank still lived with, saying that she was mistreating him, calling her names, etc. So hearing him say that he was hooking up with her stung a lot, but also set off some red flags. I go to work that day upset, but I was getting over it quickly. Until Frank's ex messaged me on Instagram. We'll call her Stacy. Stacy told me how he was love-bombing her and begging for her back, and that she wanted to make sure me and him weren't a thing. Out of respect, I told Stacy what he had said to me, considering she was brought up in the text anyway, and I sent her screenshots of every single time he trash-talked her. And I'm talking at least 50 screenshots of paragraphs of him trash-talking her. He was trying to get sympathy from me for him to come over and stay the night. Stacy apologized for his actions and decided to not date him. Eventually, me and her grew to become good friends, and I realized Frank had lied about everything. Stacy was the sweetest, most timid person I'd ever met. Now remember the gift he had given me? I ended up rearranging my room and finding the bag with everything Frank gave me. Looking at the items, something seemed so off. I texted Stacy about it. I asked her if she happened to be missing anything. Any crystals or hoodies? She had a hippie aesthetic, so her owning crystals was a given. Stacy texted me back that she was in fact missing 3 crystals, and she described the ones that Frank had gifted me exactly. The hoodie? Also hers. The charms? Hers. The only thing he didn't steal from her to gift to me were the baked goods. They were from his job. Stacy and Frank both worked at the mall in our city, and I decided to stop by and return everything he had stolen and given to me. He was off that day, but I was told when she got home and he saw the gaudy bag he put everything in, he knew we met up and knew what he did. He apparently started crying and begging for her to forgive him on his knees, which I found hilarious. Fast forward a week later, Stacy tells me he went back to doing the same thing with other girls. Apparently, he has done this 5 other times to different girls, getting into full committed relationships and cheating. Angry, I remembered something Frank had told me about, how he would steal baked goods to bring home, and that if his boss found out, he'd be done for. So I naturally called the store he worked at, told him everything he was doing at work, along with his cheating and two-timing, and all the other secrets he told me about. What he does at work that could get him fired. Since then, I've never seen him at the bakery, and when I ask about him, they pretend he never existed. Even my new best friend Stacy said he moved out since he couldn't afford rent. So where he is now is a mystery. Am I the jerk for telling my best friend to leave my house because she showed up with my ex-boyfriend? I, 20 female, have 1 kid and another on the way with my ex-boyfriend Jared, who's 30, and we've been successfully co-parenting for the past 2 months. My best friend, Sarah, who's 21, has always been a big part of my life, and we've been close since high school. I had a casual meetup with my friends last month. Sarah was there too. This was Sarah's first time drinking, and she probably overdid it because she casually mentioned that she's been hanging out with Jared, my ex-boyfriend and the father of my kids, more often. I was immediately taken aback, but tried not to jump to conclusions and asked her for more information. She replied, saying that they had just hit it off and that he's a cool guy. I thought it was strange, considering our history and that we've only been broken up for 2 months. Not to mention, we co-parent our kid and have another one on the way. Sarah said it simply wasn't her problem, and she's not the one who's single, pregnant, and broke at 20. This comment hurt, coming from my best friend, but I was able to keep my composure and ultimately moved on after she apologized. Last Friday, Jared came over to my place to take our daughter for the weekend. He didn't mention, however, that he would be bringing Sarah too. As soon as Jared and Sarah walked through the door, I was disoriented, but I tried not to create tension in front of my daughter. I pulled them over to casually ask why they were here together. Jared and Sarah denied being anything other than friends and told me that Jared was Sarah's ride home, and Sarah suggested coming over because she wanted to see me and my ex had to make this stop anyway. Their behavior was beginning to bother me, and I told them that I would prefer if they did not come to my house together again in the future. Jared argued back, claiming I was being controlling, and he can decide who his friends are. Sarah made a comment about me, something along the lines of, maybe if you were more fun, he wouldn't need to look elsewhere. That was the last straw for me. My immediate response was to tell them to leave, quite loudly and harshly. Since they've left, I've been replaying the scene in my mind, and I just feel a mix of anger, betrayal, and sadness. The situation made me feel uncomfortable, and as if my best friend didn't even care about me. But maybe I could have handled it better. It has been stressing me out, and I don't want my daughter or my baby to be affected. I have to know, am I the jerk for the way I reacted? Not the jerk, but ma'am, you are as good at choosing best friends as you are at choosing boyfriends. Not the jerk. They came to your house to obviously disrespect you under your roof. It's very fair to choose who comes into your house and to choose to not let people in who betrayed you. Anyway, given your ex's pattern, Sarah is going to end up also single, pregnant, and broke in her 20s before he moves on to another woman to impregnate and then dump. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend she's wrong about my family after she met them at Thanksgiving? I'm 29, male. I invited my girlfriend, who's 27, to my family's Thanksgiving dinner. My mom, my aunt, and my sister-in-laws are all the best cooks, so they always take care of dinner and everything. My mom was so excited to meet my girlfriend that she, my mom, pulled my girlfriend in the kitchen to help. Everyone liked my girlfriend, and I thought it was a good day, but my girlfriend is mad at me now. She got mad that all the women did the cooking and cleaning up while the men sat around and did nothing. She asked why I didn't try to help. My mom or any of my relatives never asked, and I don't want to be in the way. It's nothing to do with women or men. The best cooks in the family make the dinner. It just so happens to be women who do it. My girlfriend said she got pulled into cooking too, and she didn't want to be rude to my mom, so she said yes. It's because my mom was excited to get to know her, but my girlfriend said my brother brought his new boyfriend to meet the family, and he didn't get pulled into helping. According to her, my mom waited on him hand and foot, but my girlfriend got put to work. She's also mad at me because she kept coming out to see me and she was trying to get me to get her out of the kitchen, but I kept sending her back. I had no idea she wanted out and didn't want to help my mom and everyone. Am I the jerk for telling her she's wrong when she basically made it out that my family treats men and women differently? My mom is a lawyer. My sister-in-law is a biologist. All of the women in the family are educated and have careers. They are not treated differently or as less than. They just happen to be the best with cooking. My girlfriend won't talk to me or return my messages. She's overreacting, right? I can't see why she's mad like she is. The fact that all the women also have full-time professional jobs is even more of a reason for the men to pitch in and help. Why do the men get to relax? Meanwhile, the women have to cook and clean a gigantic meal. The fact that she tried multiple times to escape the kitchen and you essentially shoot her back in is particularly irritating. I would have been fuming if I were your girlfriend. Your family is old school and jerks. And yes, you're the jerk. You're the jerk. They're just the best cooks, and your excuses don't stand up because your mother didn't make your brother's boyfriend cook, just her, and every time she left the kitchen, you sent her back. If she kept coming out and asking you to spend time with her, then it's obvious what she wants. You left her not only to cook with the women, but you fed her to the wolves. No new partner ever wants to show up, then spend all their time cut off from their partner and under interrogation by the rest of the family. That alone makes you a giant jerk. Not the jerk. As a woman myself, just be thankful your girlfriend is showing you how problematic she is now so you can end it and move on. It's so sad how many stories I've been seeing on here about all these girlfriends who throw a fit over Thanksgiving. Anytime I go to my in-laws' place, whether it's a holiday or not, you bet your butt I'm going to ask his mom what I can do to help in the kitchen. Cooking is part of what I bring to the table in our relationship. I don't make the money my husband does. I don't know how to work on cars or use all his tools the way he does. So I express my love in other ways, just like his mother does. On Thanksgiving, my father-in-law probably spent $500 on all the food we had there. Why should he be the one to cook it when we can cook it better and show our love and appreciation in doing so? Edit. Why do I get the feeling all these downvotes are from bitter, lonely, single women? I'm 28 female. My boyfriend, who's 34, claims our shared home isn't mine. My boyfriend purchased a house years ago before I was in the picture. At the time, he was married and had a kid with his ex-wife. He purchased the house entirely in his own name due to her credit and has continued to own it after they separated. He's a retired vet and receives a monthly disability check from the VA that's about equal to my salary. As we were dating, I started to search for a house to purchase. My budget was limited, so I didn't have a lot of great prospects, so I was doing it rather slowly, but still actively looking. As we got more serious, he really pushed for me to just move in with him, especially since he had his daughter. I was hesitant, but eventually I did. I've continued to actively search for a house to purchase and save towards a down payment. I've lived here paying half the rent and utilities and most of the groceries for the last year. The other day during a board game, my partner and I were debating, in what seemed initially friendly, about the meaning of a rule. At which point, he stated abruptly and aggressively that his name was on the mortgage and this was his house, so what he says goes, and he decided the way the rule of the game played out. This threw me off and made me feel horrible, like somehow this wasn't our house and my portion of bills was discounted. That was over a week ago. Today, the conversation of common law came up, and in him explaining it to his daughter, it led to us talking about the home and how things got divided up if we stayed together that long. Regardless of the how, he states that my payment barely contributes to the mortgage and only covers utilities. I pay half of the cost of living plus groceries for the three of us. Frankly, I pay more than I view as my fair share, and I feel splitting the cost of the two-bedroom home down the middle leaves me paying for a room I never get to use that his daughter lives in. Reading step-parent blogs, they pay based on the number of rooms. Plus, my grocery bill has tripled living here. I feel I'm footing the bill for a lot of his daughter's living expenses, which makes me feel very resentful when every moment he drives home that I don't contribute or have any stake in this home. He's right that I have no stake, but I more than contribute with household costs and chores. But if I moved out on my own, our relationship would end, so it feels silly. I want to revisit how expenses are split, because I don't feel secure in the way he's talking that I won't be left out to rot. I am much better at managing my money, and even with a higher cost of rent, living alone, I was able to save more money living on my own. And since he keeps making it so clear that this isn't my home and I don't contribute, I frankly want to focus on saving more and finish purchasing my own home. Really, I want to leave this home and relationship. How do you split expenses? What would be equitable in our situation? You said it yourself. You want to leave his home and the relationship, and I think that's the wisest decision you could make. If he thinks having his name on the deed makes him your lord and master, it's unlikely you'll have a good life with him. And if you ever split up, and let's face it, you're going to split up, then you will be left with nothing. Leave now when you've only wasted a year. The my house, my rules thing is bad enough when it's used on kids, but to pull it on an adult partner is a huge red flag. I wouldn't be trying to determine how to split costs. I would just split. When guys try to pull this, your house belongs to both of us, even though my name is not on the title, they get torn to shreds. But when the girlfriend is the one who says it, every single one of you sides with her. Another day, another fine example of Reddit hypocrisy. But go ahead, guys, add your girlfriend's name to the title of your house since she's living there with you. Let me know how that works out for you once you guys break up. Am I the jerk for not telling a coworker that I'm married? I, 27 female, attended my work festive party, black tie, on Saturday evening with my husband, who's 30. The office has been excited for the last couple of weeks about it, as it's been the first festive event the company has held in over 10 years. There's been lots of talk about outfits and how much fun it will be, etc. We have lots of hybrid and work-from-home staff, so getting all together is something we were all looking forward to. My office is split into several departments, and we have 2 floors in our office building. I don't know anyone outside of my own department, and I work hybrid. I recognize people from the canteen and the locker room, but I don't know their names. There's a guy on the other floor who has a locker near mine, and we've chatted a few times, but only small talk, and we never exchanged names. I never got the vibe that he was trying to flirt with me. On Friday, I saw him, and we had a short conversation about the party. He told me what he was going to be wearing, and he showed me a photo of the new waistcoat he had bought. Then he told me he had bought a top hat to wear because he's always wanted one, but hadn't had a reason before. I told him his waistcoat looked nice. Sorry for rambling, I just want to include all the details. At the party, we were seated within our own department to start, and then we were free to move about after the welcome speech. As it happens, I didn't see Top Hat Guy until I was leaving. I left about 30 minutes before the official end. We made eye contact, so I smiled and nodded, but he didn't respond. I thought maybe he didn't see me after all, and thought nothing of it. Today in the office, Top Hat Guy spoke to me and told me it was rude to mislead him into thinking I was interested in him, and I should have told him I was in a relationship because I've embarrassed him and strung him along. He sounded really upset and borderline angry. I said I didn't do anything to mislead him, but apologized for any miscommunication on my part. Had I known he was interested, I would have told him straight away I was married. I don't want to start gossiping in the office, and my husband will take my side automatically. I didn't think I was in the wrong, but he made me feel like I was. Not the jerk. If he never even asked your name, how could you possibly know he was interested? And why on earth would he be embarrassed unless he told people he was planning to hook up with you? That guy is crazy. You are not the jerk. Honestly, notify your supervisor and/or HR of this interaction. I always say, cover yourself. Am I the jerk for leaving Thanksgiving dinner at my mother-in-law's house after I discovered that she threw out the dish that I brought? I, 27, female, am 5 months pregnant. I have pre-existing health issues that I manage by having a diet with no meat of any sort. This has caused me and mother-in-law to have conflicts, especially when I refuse to eat the food that she makes. I used to either come and not eat anything or just stay at home. Since I'm pregnant, I could not attend Thanksgiving and not bring food with me out of respect for mother-in-law. I cooked a small meal and brought it with me. Mother-in-law made a fuss about it, but justified it as I was making a mistake robbing her grandbaby of getting all the meat benefits. I explained that I take supplements as a replacement, but she shrugged and was upset. We waited till the dinner table was set. Mother-in-law didn't let me help or go into the kitchen at all. She took my dish and said she'd reheat it for me and put it on the table. Yet when I sat down, I was stunned to have discovered that she did not put my dish there. When asked publicly, she denied receiving any dish from me and started asking if I accidentally left it at home or the car. There was a huge blow up. Mother-in-law tried to convince me to sit back down and just eat what she put on the table. I refused, but my husband insisted and told me to let it go this time. I decided to leave. I grabbed my stuff and walked out. I found out that she threw out the dish I brought and tried to get me to just eat whatever she put on her table. She said that she was looking out for my grandbaby's health, and my husband said it wasn't worth leaving the celebration and causing a scene. We had a big argument, and his mom thinks I'm being dramatic and hard to deal with. Was I the jerk for walking out? Info: the dish I brought was supposed to keep me full and provide me with all the benefits, so it wasn't like any of her appetizers or side dishes. I also put work into making it, and it cost me money. She keeps insisting it's about her grandbaby and her concern for their health. Not the jerk. I've been in your shoes. Tell your husband to defend you or you're out. Things will only get worse. She's gonna force you to raise that baby her way, and your husband is gonna let her do it. The gaslighting from her is especially scary. Literally, tell your husband straight out that he either be 100% on your side from now on for everything, or you're leaving him. Do not put up with that. It will ruin your life, your marriage, and your kid. Maternity wear. This happened several years ago. After onboarding a new job, I was told I could hire an assistant. The HR director, Kelly, handed me a stack of resumes, told me about a friend's daughter, and bumped Kat to the top of my interview list. Kat passed the tech test with high scores and interviewed well, so I hired her. Kat showed up to work on time, had a good attitude, performed well on assignments, and was generally a pleasant person all around. After probation, Kat was excited to tell me that her last raise was enough to get an apartment with her boyfriend. It was a couple months after her raise, I started to notice Kelly spending an inordinate amount of time talking to Kat. The conversation sounded personal and cordial, and Kelly was friends with Kat's mom, so I didn't think much about it. Until one day, Kelly barges in my office. "Did you know Kat moved into an apartment with her boyfriend?" Well, I might have heard something about that. "Well, Kat is pregnant and her mom is devastated," and proceeds to fill me in on the details of Kat's personal life. Uncomfortably, I interrupt, acting like I have a lot going on. This really isn't any of my business. If there's something related to Kat's performance that we need to discuss, please fill me in. But as for me, Kat is doing a great job. A few months pass. Kat's baby bump is starting to show. Kelly is again in my office. "Kat is not in compliance with the dress code." Last staff meeting, Kelly handed out a dress code policy with a collage of various women's shoes and dresses and suits, presumably cut from fashion magazines, to assist us determine what was acceptable and what was not. Is she wearing something in the not allowed clippings? As I began to spread the clip art around my desk. "She isn't wearing maternity clothes," as Kelly points to the bullet about maternity clothes in the policy. Well, the policy clearly says maternity wear is allowed. Kat is clearly pregnant and she is wearing clothes. So,
You know what I mean when I say maternity clothes? Clothes from a maternity store.
I told Kelly that I would talk to Kat, which I did. Kat filled me in that there was some drama with her mom not liking her boyfriend, that Kelly is involved, etc. I just told her to read the policy and be sure she complies, and no matter what, to trust me. I had her back. The next day, Kelly is in my office, telling me that Kat is again not in compliance with the dress code. At this point, Kelly knows I'm getting frustrated. Okay, I'll talk to her again. This time I want you present because I'm going to give her a formal warning and assign remedial training. I bring Kat into my office with Kelly present and formally read off my prepared statement, making it clear that it will go into her permanent file. Kat, you were given a verbal warning yesterday to comply with this dress code. Because it is not clear to me what is or is not a violation of this policy, you are to report to the HR office 10 minutes early every morning for the next 2 weeks for dress code inspection. Report to me if HR finds your dress unfit. If you are found to be in violation of this policy and are unable to correct your dress before the start of the workday, your employment will be terminated. By the time I'm finished, Kat is tearing up and Kelly is staring at the floor, speechless. I dismiss Kat. I hope that this is the last I hear about this, because if I do, I'll fire her. As Kelly, speechless, walks out of my office. I told Kat not to worry about any of this. We have them where we want them. So for a week, Kat reported to me that her clothes were fine per HR inspection. At the beginning of the second week, she was chuckling. Kelly told me that I looked very nice today. Attitudes began to change and everyone was smiling. I got called to the red carpet by Jim, the CEO. He tried to keep a straight face as he recited what he heard was going on and asked me to cut the remedial training short because it was embarrassing the HR staff. Straight-faced, I said, "Well, Jim, if I stop the remedial training, I'd have to fire Kat. Company policy clearly states that failure to complete a formal remediation plan is immediate termination. It is very clear. There is zero tolerance. You can't fire a pregnant woman for what she wears. I'm asking, no, I'm telling you to stop. Stop following a company policy?" Laughing, he concedes. "Okay, I am rescinding that ridiculous dress code policy effective immediately." Build a fence on my property? Have fun digging it up and moving the whole thing. A neighbor hired a contractor to build a wood privacy fence. I came home after the posts were set and immediately suspected the fence posts were on my property. We live in brand new homes, so I asked her to meet me outside with her survey. I had already staked out the property line and it was clear to see the posts were on my property. Before I could say a word, she said,
You can't tell where to put a fence with a survey.
which astounded me and left me shaking my head. After a few minutes of trying to explain that a survey is absolutely the way to determine where your fence should be, she threw her hands up and said,
My contractor has my survey.
and walked back into her house. The next week, the contractor continued to finish the fence without moving anything. We emailed her, we called her, and she just ghosted us. I paid $900 to have a surveyor do a site visit and write a report that clearly showed the fence was on our property. We sent that to her from our lawyer, and she finally responded,
There must be some mistake.
Only after more legal threats did she get her contractor back to move it off our property. Meanwhile, she trash-talked us to anyone she could and labeled us as bullies, and half of the neighborhood is believing her. She won't talk to us, which is actually fine by us, but it really upset us knowing she has created this negative impression of us. I should mention that our lots are pretty small, and we had a very large backyard project done this summer, and the fence was taking up valuable real estate that we needed to fit our pool in. We tried to deal with this in a polite neighborly way, and she forced us to bring in our lawyer. So, am I the jerk? Edit to add. In the survey I paid for, the fence was measured at 12 inches into our property line. Not an insignificant amount if you ask me. Not the jerk. You did exactly the correct thing. Your neighbor is a thief. She attempted to simply take your property. You own that property. You paid for it and you need it. She's lucky you haven't sued her to recover the cost of the additional survey. Not the jerk. When the neighbor pays your mortgage and taxes with the deed in their name, they can put the fence on your property then. Until then, building anything on your property they don't own is theft and trespassing. My girlfriend doesn't know that I know she plans to leave me and take our daughter with her. Context. We're both 21 and we have a daughter named Allie. We had her on accident at 19. We were only about 2 years into dating, but we've made it work out pretty well. I make solid money and I'm about over a year from applying for my full license in my career. She has been doing online school for a law degree. I'm a big racing guy. It ran in my family as my dad and uncle were as well. My dad passed in an accident when I was 13, so he never got to meet our daughter. However, I got to keep a couple of his old cars, and I've been working on them for years. I've taken them to the local track, and I've even done street racing in certain areas around me. As ridiculous as it sounds, he passed a couple weeks before the newest installment of the Fast and the Furious 7. He loved those movies, and so did I. I guess if anyone knows the legacy around that movie, it does mean a lot to me, even with how ridiculous it is. My girlfriend has never been a big fan of racing. She always understood the importance it has held to me, so she has tried to work with it, but her best friend is in a long-term relationship with my best friend. My best friend got into an accident over the summer racing and flipped his vehicle. He survived and mostly came out all right outside of some bruises and a concussion, but my girlfriend was adamant that I quit doing it. This sparked an ongoing issue with us, which, while I understand her concern, I haven't been in anything nearly close to an accident. I work on all my own stuff, so I know exactly what I'm doing, and she has reasonably said I can't bank on that forever. Which is fair, but I've communicated I'm not ready to give that part of my life up yet. I have so much I want to still do and accomplish that my dad never did. I love running into his old buddies and talking to them, telling me how I'm just like him and how proud he'd be. I raced a couple of weeks ago. Everything went well and fine. However, my best friend reached out to me to tell me that my girlfriend planned on leaving me around New Year's. This was a conversation between her and her best friend, which was relayed back to me by my best friend, which he wasn't supposed to tell me. I do feel conflicted. I get her concern. It was heightened when Allie was born. I know she wants me to let it go, and her concerns are valid. I definitely don't want to make her out to be a villain. I just really don't think I can do that right now. I love my girls too, and I love spending time with them. They're well cared for, and like I said, we're doing much better than most parents our age. At the core of me though, I really wanted to be just like my dad. I even want to explore bike racing. It's hard to let that go for the reasons I've given. However, I never wanted to be an absent parent because I know what it's like to not have that parent. I guess I have around a month to really think about it. That feels terrifying. Obviously, keeping it to myself, I haven't really talked about it with anyone, so I'm just looking to put it out there. Edit. I would like to say my dad didn't pass from racing. His accident came from a drunk driver when he was coming home from work one night. My dad never got hurt on the track. He was smart. Also, I get people who think I'm being stupid for my life decisions. I never expected people to have my back. However, telling me to sell the cars is pretty disrespectful, and I'll ignore everything else you write. Racing is one thing, but the cars are the only thing I still have of him. It's sad that you think you have time. She's already talking about leaving you, which means she's been thinking about it for a really long time already, which means that emotionally, she's been leaving you for months. And each time you openly disrespect her concerns that she's already expressed to you, you make it easier to let go of loving you. And honestly, it doesn't sound like you love her either. It sounds like you're together because you guys have been making it work, careers, home, parenting, etc. You're both too young to be so unhappy. It's probably why you won't stop chasing the racing adrenaline. So maybe it's best to let her leave, but talk it through and be honest with each other. Be brave and talk to her about it if you really want out. My parents want to give my sister the earrings that my grandma left for me. This whole situation feels surreal to me. When I was 20 years old, I got involved in a complicated relationship/friends with benefits scenario with a guy who's now 40. It was messy, with us being on and off for nearly 5 years. He was clear from the start that he wasn't ready for a committed relationship, while I was hopelessly in love with him. Every time I tried to walk away, he persuaded me to stay, citing that love is free, we have time, and he wasn't ready for commitment. I sought advice from my sister, who's now 42. Her suggestions were terrible, like making him compromise, leaving my things at his place, essentially forcing him into a relationship before it was too late for him to decline. But I couldn't bring myself to do that. I wanted him to love me genuinely, not be trapped. On the last night I spent at his place, he expressed interest in a serious relationship, talked about planned dates, only to vanish forever. It was devastating. He was my first love, and he treated me terribly. 6 months later, my sister arrived home, declaring she had a new boyfriend, something quite common for her. But this time, she claimed he was the one. There was a family dinner to introduce him, excluding me from the occasion as if I wasn't part of the family. While they dined, I ordered pizza and discovered that the guy I had been involved with 6 months prior was at the dinner with my parents and sister. I was stunned, paid for my pizza, and retreated to my room, unable to hold back tears. After the dinner, I confronted my sister in front of our parents, begging her not to be with him and to be loyal to me, her younger sister. She knew who he was. I had shown her pictures, his social media, where he worked, even where he lived. They had never met because he didn't want to introduce me to his family, but she knew who he was and intentionally excluded me from that dinner. She defended herself, claiming they had met by chance after we stopped seeing each other. She knew how much pain I was in during those 6 months. I blamed myself for being naive, thinking if I stayed long enough, he would love me back. It was foolish, I know. My parents sided with her, dismissing our relationship as non-existent. A year and a half has passed. I've been excluded from family gatherings because he would be there, and my family believes I'll bring negativity due to my bitterness. I don't have feelings for him anymore, but I feel betrayed by my sister and parents. He's nothing but a villain in my eyes now. My sister is now 6 months pregnant and has been receiving special treatment due to her age. She plans to move in with him in a couple of months after the baby is born. Then they'll get married. In our culture, it's customary for a woman who gives birth to return or stay with her mother for support during the early months. Recently, my sister's friends threw her a surprise baby shower at our house. I was there and tried to engage with them, feeling sad that our once close relationship had deteriorated. However, they treated me as if I were the cause of all the chaos, a homewrecker, or someone trying to steal my sister's partner. I had already been planning to move out, saving money for my own place. But after that incident, I left immediately to a friend's house, and I'm currently in the process of finding my own place. 2 days ago, my parents asked for a talk. They informed me that the diamond earrings our grandma left will be given to my sister. Grandma had entrusted my parents to give me those earrings without a will, mentioning that they were to be mine once I was mature enough to appreciate and care for our family heirloom. But now, they believe my sister should have them since she's getting married first and having the first great-grandchild. I'm furious. They're snatching something that rightfully belongs to me based on my grandma's wishes. It's heartbreaking to even consider cutting off my family, but their actions have hurt me deeply. Fighting over material possessions feels trivial, but these earrings were entrusted to me by my grandma. They're not entitled to them. After being excluded and feeling wronged for 2 years, I've given my parents an ultimatum. Honor my grandma's wishes and give me the earrings as intended, or I'll sever ties with them forever. It's painful to think about disconnecting from my family, but their continual disregard for my feelings and grandmother's intentions has pushed me to this point. Get your hands on those earrings and keep them safe. They are yours and should be in your possession by now. Ask nicely, then if she doesn't give them up, tell her you will sue, then do it. Am I the jerk for refusing to make lasagna for Christmas after what my mother-in-law did last year? I, 30 female, have been together with my husband Michael, who's 31, for 7 years, married for 3 and dating for 4. My mother-in-law, 58 female, has always hosted Christmas ever since I've known him. I've always made lasagna for Christmas and other special occasions. I'm essentially the family lasagna maker, and I honestly don't really mind since I love to cook and bake. However, last year my mother-in-law decided to make lasagna based off what she saw me doing when she was at my house, and a recipe that she got off the internet. I was surprised that she prepared a pan of her own, but didn't say anything and even got a small piece. It did not taste good, and it was barely touched, whilst mine had almost half gone near the end of the dinner. That infuriated my mother-in-law, and she wound up doing a rant about how everyone loves me more than her and tried to throw my lasagna in the trash. I say tried because it mainly ended up on the floor. Michael and I quickly left after that, and my mother-in-law has not apologized for it since. Yesterday, she called me to confirm what I was making for Christmas this year, and on her list of things I should make was lasagna. I politely said I wasn't going to make lasagna due to last year's incident, and I'd be happy to make anything else. My mother-in-law wasn't as polite and called me vindictive for refusing to make the lasagna over a small mistake. I just refused again, and it made my mother-in-law angrier, so she told me that unless I show up with lasagna in hand, she wouldn't let me be at the Christmas celebration. My husband says it's easier to just make the lasagna and keep the peace, and I shouldn't hold my mother-in-law's mistake that she made out of anger against her. Word got to my sister-in-law and brother-in-law from my mother-in-law, and they're saying I should also make it, even if it's just half of what I would usually make. You could take a different tack. Tell everyone that after what happened last Christmas, you've decided not to bring your lasagna this year because of the tension it caused. Add that it was actually a bit of a relief not to have to bring one because it's hard work to get it to come out right. If you are not welcome without a lasagna, then wish them a wonderful holiday party, and maybe next year you'll feel ready to make it again and attend. Am I the jerk for asking my son to bring my 6-week-old granddaughter to visit me without his fiancé? I'm 51, female. My son is 29, and he and his fiancée, Jen, have a 6-week-old daughter, Lily. She also has a 7-year-old son that is not my son's kid, but I still consider him my grandbaby. I used to get along really well with Jen and told everyone she was like a daughter to me. But when she got pregnant, she started acting weird towards me. Like, I asked to be in the room for delivery, and she said a clipped no, despite letting her 7-year-old son's dad's mom in the room for his delivery. No big deal, it's her choice. But when I went to visit in the hospital afterwards, she acted really put off that I was there. I figured she was just tired and left after 20 minutes to give her space. But then it continued. I've stopped in to see everyone about 5 times since she had the baby, and every single time that I walk in, she gets really quiet. Whenever I'm holding the baby, she is hovering. She keeps snapping at me over small things, like how I'm holding the baby, had her on my belly, on my arm, or sideways across my knees on her belly. Because she's crying. Obviously she doesn't like that, so stop. Or snapping at me for things I say to the baby. Like when she starts fussing, I said, "You won't get your own way with me. You can't play me like that," in a baby voice, trying to calm her. And she goes, "She's 4 weeks old. How exactly is she playing you?" Then she got livid and actually kicked me out of the house one time because she picked up the baby for making the smallest of noises, and I told her the baby was going to get used to being held all the time if she kept doing that. And she said, "Well, it's a good thing she's my kid, and I don't have to listen to your crying it out BS." Well, I went there on Thanksgiving, and apparently it was her mother's first time meeting the baby, and of course the baby was all smiles and loved her grandma. But when I got the chance to hold the baby, she immediately started screaming and was promptly taken from me. I feel very slighted. I asked my son if he would bring the baby to visit me without his fiancé, because I feel like his fiancé's attitude towards me is the reason why the baby screams every time I hold her. I definitely think she's picking up on the hostility. I don't know why she even dislikes me now, but asking her currently would be pointless. He told me he absolutely would not bring his daughter to my place without her mother because he wouldn't do that to his fiancée, who has never been away from the baby thus far. I told him they were purposely ruining my chance at a relationship with my granddaughter, and he said that wasn't true and that I need to stop pushing my old-fashioned beliefs, which is the first time I've heard of this. Am I the jerk for expecting him to bring my granddaughter to me without her mom so I can have a relationship with her? You don't know why she dislikes you? You never heard anyone saying you were pushing your beliefs before? Really? Because I've been reading this for 30 seconds and I know exactly why she dislikes you, and it's because you're pushing your beliefs on her. You're the jerk. You're making this whole situation about you. Let them be a family together. Let them set the rules for how the baby is cared for unless they're doing something objectively dangerous. You might spoil the baby if you pick her up is not objectively dangerous. Let go of how you were deprived of what you seem to think is your right to be present at one of the most vulnerable moments of her life. You can't ruin a relationship with a 6-week-old baby, but you're well on your way to ruining the relationships with your son and daughter-in-law. Back off if you ever hope to be welcome in their lives. I would be unsurprised if OP is also the type who thinks she's helping when she's doing what she wants and not what's needed. I felt secondhand embarrassment just reading this post. How embarrassing to be so out of touch and pushing parenting practices that have been shown to be harmful. You're the jerk. Sorry. Telling your future daughter-in-law that she shouldn't hold the baby all the time because the baby is going to get used to it incorporated 3 errors, and it seems like you didn't notice any of them. So I would guess that you have done a lot of other problematic things you haven't noticed, and this is raising your future daughter-in-law's hackles. The first error you made, in that one instance, you criticized her parenting. Never criticize a child-in-law's parenting unless it's something very serious. The second error you made was that you used "I'm older and know better" logic to contradict her. That never goes down well because it comes across as controlling. But also, modern parents generally believe that parenting techniques have improved over the decades, so your old-fashioned advice is going to be assumed to be wrong. You might as well tell her to not use a car seat. That's how credible she will take your outdated parenting advice to be. The third error you made, and possibly the worst, is that you treated her like she has no idea how to be a mom when she actually already has a 7-year-old. This isn't her first time around the block, and you ignoring that will be taken correctly to be demeaning. I totally feel for you. I'm a mom with no daughters, only sons. Although I've made huge efforts to include my in-laws in my kids' lives, I definitely see that most mothers don't make the same effort, and some are pretty active about centering all their activities on their own parents and excluding their husband's parents. So I could easily be in your situation in the future. At the same time, I also see the ways my mother-in-law and father-in-law, albeit nice people, have undermined me and demeaned me in their zeal to be the authority over our grandkids and center of all things, and I can totally understand how life-sucking that is for a daughter-in-law. Take notes of everything you say in the meeting? Okay, but it'll get you fired. So this happened a few years ago, and I'll be vague since I'm still not sure if the dust is fully settled from this fiasco yet. At my former company, I was the secretary for a small improvement team that would meet monthly to discuss issues within the company and brainstorm ways to fix them. Something you need to know about me is that I was given this role because people know I'm meticulous at keeping records due to HR-related issues I had at a previous place of employment. I don't think my boss realized that this careful record-keeping applied to her as well, especially when she appointed me to be secretary of this little committee, but I digress. I was a model employee, award-winning, and went above and beyond what was asked, as were many others in my department, but we were still having customer complaints and dealt with regular safety issues due to the company at large and through no fault of our own. When we brought these concerns to our boss's attention, emails were left unread, and during in-person exchanges, we were called whiny, needy, and were told that we needed to just deal with it. Whatever the issue was, from items being stolen by customers to people being unhappy with the procedures the boss had set down for us to follow, it was always made to somehow be our fault. When we sought support from other departments, we were met with cold indifference, since the boss was great to them and we must be exaggerating the things she said to us. Well, during an improvement meeting at the end of the fiscal year, it all came to a head. Myself and a couple of my team members dug our heels in and were insistent about the unresolved issues the boss refused to acknowledge, and she finally went off on us. She told us everyone was incompetent, didn't deserve our jobs, and that maybe customers would like us more if we were more likable. When people pressed her on safety issues, she continued to reiterate that we would just have to deal with it, and that if someone was going to get hurt, they already would have, right? I, as a secretary, did my duty and took notes of all that happened over the course of that meeting. I usually did bullet points, but that night I was feeling a little more thorough, so I wrote down words. Every word that was said, every hateful comment, denial of accountability, and idle threat was recorded in black and white. Now, a second part of my job was to distribute the notes from the improvement meeting to the rest of the company. So, come the next morning, I ran about 100 copies of the transcript of the meeting and hand-delivered them to every single department in the building, and things blew up. People from other departments who had attended the meeting were able to verify that everything I had typed up had really been said, and folks were mad, threatening to quit, refusing to do their normal duties, browsing Indeed during work, etc. My boss's boss, who worked at headquarters, so I didn't get the opportunity to hand her a copy, got word of what had been said only a few hours after I had handed these out, and had a long conversation with me about the safety issues I had documented, all the concerns I had submitted to management in writing, and all the records I had regarding my boss's inaction. She was very grateful for the 100 pages of documentation I sent over and thanked me for my time. The day after I unleashed Pandora's box, I put in my 2 weeks' notice, took a new job, and pieced out to greener pastures. At first, it seemed like things were calming down after I left, but the following year, the company did not renew my boss's contract. I still feel a bit bad because I wasn't trying to get her fired or ruin her life. I was just desperate for some accountability thrown her way to create some positive change in the company. But at the end of the day, I just did what she had asked me to do. Revenge on Know-It-All ER Doctor. The day of my 28th birthday, I wound up in the ER because all weekend long I'd been dealing with nausea, dizziness, fever, and lower right quadrant abdominal pain that all just kept getting worse. When I got back to see a doc, I described my symptoms, for the umpteenth time of course, since they never seem to read the notes, and the doc orders a CBC before he even starts the exam. He of course then starts poking and prodding at my abdomen, which I do my best to relax and breathe through. I still wind up making pain noises, but I do my best to let him do the exam without hurting him back. I know that other women can verify the annual physicals can be extremely painful for some of us, but we've learned to deal with it. For me, I was told that tensing up would make it worse, so I should practice breathing through the exam and doing my best to relax my whole body. By 28, I'd had lots of practice. You'll see why I mention it very shortly. The doctor went off to do whatever he needed to do while he waited for the blood work to come back. Once he read the report, he wandered back over to me. He tells me that my white cell count was only slightly elevated, and that since I wasn't tensing up much when he was poking and prodding, that he didn't think it was appendicitis. I explained to him my history of painful exams and also let him know that my body likes to hide things. For example, I was dealing with massive back pain, and they only found out that my back was actually broken when they decided to go in and do a fusion. It never showed on the scans. Fast forward about 20 minutes later of arguing back and forth. Doc, I could go in and do an exploratory, but if I'm gonna do that, I may as well just take out your appendix while I'm in there. Me, okay, let's do that. I have a request though. Can I have my appendix in a jar so I can see it? Sure, I can do that. No problem. I wind up in surgery at 4 a.m. the next day. Once I'm fully awake after surgery, the nurse tells me what happened. I guess they didn't care much for this doctor's attitude either. The day after that, the doc is doing rounds with med students in tow and comes to my room. Cue petty revenge. Me, hey doc, where's my appendix? Doc, I'll come back later and talk to you about it. Me, you're here now, just tell me. Well, we got lucky. How so? We managed to get it out right before it burst. Wow, I guess you'll learn to pay more attention to what your patients tell you instead of acting like you know everything just because you have a medical degree. Edit. The doc in the ER was actually the surgeon on duty, not just a standard ER doctor. No clue why he was dealing with my case from beginning to end. It may be as simple as boredom on his part, or he had just finished up a consult. I have no idea. I refer to him as the ER doc because I was in the ER and he's the only doctor I dealt with. So ER and doc just stick together in my head. Am I the jerk for ruining a kid's Christmas because I refused to sell my doll? I, 36 female, love thrifting. I'm also a kid at heart, so this summer when I found several bags of American Girl doll clothes, I bought them. I collect old dolls that sometimes need clothes, but was really hoping an American Girl doll would show up. Against all odds, one did show up on the shelf a few weeks later. As a kid, I always wanted one so badly, but they had been pretty expensive, so I never got one. I paid $35, took her home, and enjoyed dressing her up. My son joined in, dressing up as stuffies. It was so cute that I took a pic and put it on Facebook. Also, while researching her, I found out my doll is just like you, number 11, which are a bit rare and go for $100 to $300 online. Always fun to find valuable things at the thrift store for cheap. Fast forward to today. A few days after Black Friday, I got tagged in a friend of a friend's post. Kay is asking if anyone has an American Girl doll to sell. She had tried to buy one online for Black Friday, but couldn't find anything within her price range. I instantly had Kay in my DMs offering me $50 for my doll. I declined, telling her that I don't know why my friend tagged me because my doll isn't for sale. She replied about how she had promised her 6-year-old granddaughter, Mia, a doll for Christmas. She was now worried if she ordered a more expensive doll online, it wouldn't get to her in time, and offered me $70. I again declined and said my doll was something I had wanted during Christmas as a kid and waited a long time for. Kay immediately countered, "See, you know what it's like not getting the doll you wanted so badly. Please, you could make this Christmas so special for Mia. You can use the money to get a brand new one." I thought about it, I really did, but I told her no thanks. Finding mine at the thrift shop felt special, like it was meant to be. I suggested if she was worried about the doll not getting to her in time, she could get one of the much cheaper American Girl knockoffs at Walmart and have it ready just in case, and return it if the American Girl doll makes it in time. Kay didn't want to get a cheap doll. She then switched tactics, asking me if I would even be able to look at my doll again, knowing that not selling her meant I ruined Christmas for a 6-year-old. Yes, I can, Kay, because when you decide to be manipulative is where I draw the line. I immediately blocked her. Maybe this makes me the jerk, but I don't really care. I'm sorry, little Mia. I hope you can get the doll of your dreams someday. Not the jerk in any way, shape, or form. You never offered it, never said to anyone you'd be looking at selling it. You didn't ruin Christmas. It's the lady who's the jerk, because I genuinely feel like there's no harm in asking if you're interested, seeing as someone tagged you in it, and then offering an amount, but pushing it after being told no is wrong. And to be fair, if she knew it was that big of a deal, she should have been looking for one way earlier. My Karen girlfriend refuses to cook extra breakfast for me. I, 27 male, have been living with my girlfriend, who's 29 female, for several months now. For the most part, things are really good, and I plan to propose soon and hopefully have at least a couple of kids with her. However, we've run up against a conflict. She's an absolute morning person. I hate mornings. By the time I force myself out of bed in the morning and into the shower, she's already been up for at least 30 minutes, even though she has to be at work later than I do, and is at the stove making breakfast. She likes to make a huge breakfast in the morning. She usually has eggs, either French toast or pancakes, hash browns or breakfast potatoes, and sausage or bacon. Sometimes on weekends it's ham or steak. She eats almost nothing for lunch and usually has a small dinner, but she loves a huge breakfast. Meanwhile, I only ever have cold cereal for breakfast, or maybe if I'm feeling really ambitious, some instant oatmeal and orange juice. I only even start to come alive halfway through my second cup of coffee and definitely don't feel like cooking in the morning. However, my girlfriend obviously does. So recently, I asked her if she'd start making breakfast for me too. She asked if we were going to trade off and if I'd sometimes make breakfast for her too. I told her no, but reminded her that I do often make dinner for her. She said that since we trade off making dinner, we should trade off making breakfast too. I told her that there's no way I'll ever be able to muster that kind of energy first thing in the morning, but that since she obviously can, that she should just make me breakfast too. I said that it would take next to no extra effort on her part to throw in a couple more eggs, strips of bacon, an extra portion of hash browns, etc., since she's already doing it for herself anyway. But it started a fight, with her saying that it wasn't fair for me to expect her to think of me in the morning since I don't do the same for her. She seems to think that her making breakfast for me should figure into our division of labor and that I should do something extra in return. But I think that since she makes a huge breakfast for herself every morning anyway, that throwing an extra portion of whatever she's making on for me would take next to no effort on her part. So why should I have to do more for her in return than I already do? You're the jerk. Oh, so we'll take turns making breakfast for each other? No, you'll just make food for me. It's no extra effort for you anyways. The cheek on you. Dude should have offered to make dinner every night in exchange for breakfast every morning from her. The only way I could see this as not the jerk is if OP was down to make dinner as often, or in my personal opinion, more often, as the girlfriend makes breakfast. Come on, OP. Obviously, you're aware of the energy required to do things like make breakfast in the morning, so you should be at least willing to reciprocate later in the day. I'd be tucking her in, kissing her goodnight, and reading her a bedtime story if I could wake up to bacon and eggs some mornings. You're talking about proposing and having kids? Will she never get a morning off from the kids because you hate mornings? She's already up, so she should be the one to pack bags and lunches and cook everyone's breakfast? She's naturally feeding, so you never need to cover the night wake-ups. She's home earlier often, and that's the person who starts dinner and picks up the kids and deals with the homework. But you're totally doing 50-50. She's washing her clothes anyway, so it's no extra effort to put yours in, then fold them and put them away because she's doing that for the rest of the load, right? It sounds like she already feels like she's doing more, and now you're asking for something else. If it would require effort and energy for you to do it, it requires effort and energy for her to do it. This may be a small amount of additional energy for this one thing, but it makes me wonder if she's already feeling that she's putting out significantly more effort for household duties as it stands. Oh, and you're the jerk. Dude's girlfriend gets up early and makes herself a big breakfast every day. He asks her to make a little extra for him, and she flips out and refuses to do it. You're the jerk for staying with someone who treats you like this. There are actually women out there who would be happy to put a few extra eggs on in the morning so you can have something to eat too. But you definitely won't find them here on Reddit. Best part is, imagine if the roles were flipped. My husband gets up early and makes a huge breakfast just for himself every morning. I asked if he'd be willing to make a little extra for me, and he refuses to do it. All of you hypocrites would be telling her to divorce him and that she deserves better. Then you'd have the pathetic thirsty dudes commenting how they wish they could cook her breakfast since her boyfriend doesn't. They always pop up somewhere. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. It breaks my heart how transactional relationships have become. Want revenge by paying in pennies? Here, let me count these for you. Ages ago, I worked a frontline job at City Hall, registering cars and dogs and collecting money for parking tickets, property taxes, and the like. So, a basic entry-level municipal finance grunt, bottom of the food chain, nowhere close to being the one making the ordinances or rules, just a grunt. This was before the days of taking credit cards and debit cards for such payments, before smartphones, before the online banking world really began. Ages ago. Paper, paper, paper. The city's ordinance on tax interest stated that interest would accrue daily against any past due tax bill at a rate of blah blah blah. Property taxes were due quarterly. Many people would come in to pay cash on the tax due date. Many, many more would remit their payments by checks through the mail. We kept extremely thorough paper records of all payments received through the mail, retaining their remittance stub, the envelope bearing the postmark, which was the date we would use to calculate any interest if it arrived past the due date. If the postmark was before or on the due date, no interest was charged. These were batched daily by each clerk, filed by date in our vault, so anyone who needed to could find any receipt or remittance fairly quickly. We needed to, often, as did the city auditor. Anyway, business as usual, and the few days following the tax due, we would always get a few stragglers through the mail, and the daily interest would have started adding up. Not by a lot. For most homeowners, this would only amount to just a few cents a day. We would send them a receipt in the mail with a note that they have a small balance now due to accrued interest, but we would hold it at the amount for 10 days. Most people would just send another check, some would ignore it, and others would come to pay it in person. Finally, the stars aligned and I got one. A real jerk of a gentleman who was extremely disgruntled that he got a bill in the mail for this horrible interest BS, which he slapped down on the counter inches away from me. He then slammed a repurposed melatonin bottle full of pennies down on top of the paper and said, "I hope whoever sent me this bill has to count these pennies," at top volume for all of the city hall to hear. I could tell already that it was mine. I saw my initials on the receipt when he slapped it down. Cue malicious compliance. I smiled as big as I could, said I would find out who had processed it, and took his receipt to the vault. I didn't even give him enough time to react. I just got up and went to the vault while cheerfully saying, "It'll just be a minute," before disappearing from his sight. I found the paperwork, including his 2 days late postmarked envelope. Then I sat down at my desk, took the melatonin bottle, looked him in the eye and said, "You're in luck today, sir. I'm the one who sent this balance due to you, so I will be able to count these pennies for you." And I did. I counted all 39 of those pennies, and I counted them one by one, very, very thoroughly. It took him about 20 minutes to pay his 39 cents from the minute that bottle hit the counter to the end of it. I was extremely pleasant and cordial and smiling at him the entire time. It was just fun at that point, so I kept pouring it on. Just so sweet. His face was practically purple by the end, and as he slunk out the door, without the smug satisfaction he was expecting when he slammed that bottle on my counter, I said, "Have a great rest of your day. Weather's beautiful." And it was. My wife's sister tried to kiss me, and now my wife is spiraling. Plus final update. My wife's sister made a pass at me at a recent family gathering, and I have no idea what to do. For context, I think my wife, Jenna, is absolutely gorgeous, but she has some really negative body image issues. This is in large part because of her sister, Mary, who is very conventionally attractive as opposed to Jenna's more unconventional, but in my opinion, striking beauty. Mary was a successful model until a couple of years ago, and now she works in the fashion industry. In our early days of dating, when I would tell Jenna she's beautiful, she would always say, "Just wait until you see my sister." When I did finally meet her family, she would randomly press me for weeks to talk about her sister, whether I thought she was more attractive than her, etc. I always told her the truth, that I think Mary is attractive in a boring way, and that I think my wife is much more beautiful and interesting to look at. She wouldn't let it go until I confronted her about how uncomfortable it made me, and I asked her what was going on. This is when she told me that she always had a chip on her shoulder about her looks because of being compared with her sister growing up. They fell into the classic smart one, pretty one dynamic their whole lives. She also said Mary had a habit of being flirty with all of her exes and warned me that it would happen to me eventually. She then started sobbing and begging me to not cheat on her with her sister, to which I forcefully said I would never cheat on her with anyone, let alone her sister. I've been crazy about my wife since day one, and there's literally no woman on earth who could come close to her. I honestly didn't believe her about the flirting at first. I assumed it was just an extension of her insecurity, but I was wrong. Whenever we get together with my wife's family, Mary always finds ways to make little comments about me. It's super uncomfortable for everyone, especially my wife, and I've called her out on this before. She'll cool it for a while, but eventually starts doing it again. It's been 6 years of this, and every time it happens, my wife is upset for days, and I have to do a lot of reassuring. On to the current problem. A few days ago, we were at my mother-in-law's birthday party, and Mary asked me to help her grab some things from the garage. As soon as we walked into the garage, she turned and started trying to kiss me. I immediately pushed her off and asked her what the heck she was doing. She started giggling and saying she was just doing what we both have been thinking, and kept insisting, "You know you want to." I told her she was out of her mind, and I ran out of there. I went straight to my wife and told her we were leaving. The whole ride home, she was asking me what was wrong. I wasn't sure whether to tell her because I knew how much it was going to hurt her, but I also thought Mary would probably try to spin it as me making a move on her, so I knew I had to just say it. I told her everything, and she cried the whole way home. For the last several days, Mary has been calling and texting my wife, doing exactly what I thought she would do. Even telling my wife that I said she, Mary, was the hottest girl I've ever seen, which I had to assure my wife a million times that I did not say that, and I never would, even though she believes my account of the situation. She's been a complete wreck the last several days. She's hardly eating, she pulls away from my touch when I try to hug her or just hold her. She says that she feels hideous and disgusting, and I don't know what to do. This is the lowest that I've ever seen her, and it hurts to see how much she's hurting. I have no idea what to do to help her heal from this. Reddit, what should I do? All family gatherings that include Mary must now be non-attendable. Your wife knows what an awful person her sister is, and hopefully the rest of the family does too. To be honest, your wife's sister is evil. You have reassured your wife of your love and faithfulness. Your wife is incredibly insecure about herself, so obviously a professional may be in order for her and for you too. You love your wife, so stand by her and be there to support her. OP. My in-laws definitely enable her behavior. She's the golden child. They brag about her constantly, even though my wife is a neuroscientist. Their mom was a pageant queen, and she was their dad's much younger trophy wife. Honestly, we may have to go no contact with all of them. Update. Several people have asked how my wife's family feels about all of this, and I explained in a comment that her parents are toxic and treat Mary as the golden child. Even though my wife is a neuroscientist, amazingly talented musician, speaks 3 languages fluently and another 2 conversationally. My wife and her family are seriously the only people who don't seem to understand how exceptional she is. I remember meeting one of my wife's family friends and talking to them about her research, and they said, "Oh wow, her parents just told us that she works at a university." Whereas my parents literally introduce her as the family genius to everyone. It makes me so angry to think about how her family has stolen her shine her whole life. She's literally a Renaissance woman, but all they care about is looks and money. Some people asked me why I would ever put myself in a situation alone with Mary given everything she's done. I have no good answers for that, other than I never thought she would actually try to do anything like this. That possibility just didn't even exist in my head. I realize now that I should have seen this would happen eventually, and that I should have been less concerned with keeping the peace and more concerned with shutting Mary's crap down before it escalated to this point. Hindsight is 20/20. Anyway, on to the update. The night I posted, I told my wife that if she wanted to try to repair her relationship with her sister, I would respect that, but that I don't feel comfortable with being around her for the foreseeable future. I said Mary has obviously been deeply jealous of my wife her whole life because she is a hollow, ugly person whose entire value has an expiration date, while my wife actually has substance. I said that I think her whole family is toxic and has done nothing but put her down her entire life, but that only she can decide where she wants them in her life or not. I also told my wife that while I don't blame her for her emotional reaction, her insecurity is something that she needs to work on for our relationship to be healthy. What Mary did was wrong, and she's been acting this way for years, but I have consistently put aside my own feelings about this problem because of how it affects her, and that has prevented me from getting the support that I need too. I told her that her reaction only serves to punish herself and me for her sister's behavior, and there's no reason to give her that kind of power. I also told her something that a commenter said that really resonated with me. The only people who have ever considered her second best are her and her family. Everyone else sees her for who she really is. She was crying the whole time and agreed that she needed to go to therapy to work on her insecurity. We were able to find a therapist who specializes in body image and self-esteem issues to work with her individually, and we're looking for a couples therapist too. My wife sent a message to her parents and sister that explained exactly what happened and told them she would reach out to them if she ever feels ready to repair their relationship. We blocked all of them everywhere, but Mary has of course been spamming my family and our friends with nonsense that thankfully nobody believes. My wife is still down in the dumps, but I can see that things are getting a little better. She's eating and sleeping more, and she's cuddling with me in the mornings again, which is nice. Now I'm planning a surprise getaway for us this weekend. We're going to one of our favorite places, and I'm going to wine and dine her and try to make her feel like the queen that she is. I want to thank you all for your help. You really helped me understand this. Y'all are the best. Update. My wife loved the getaway weekend. We had a blast, and by the end of it, she said she felt like herself again. For a few days after we got back, things were really quiet, so we were hopeful that Mary had finally given up, but I felt uneasy about it. Many of you warned me that Mary would try to interfere with my work, and while I initially dismissed it, I figured I would reach out to my boss just in case. I've been working at the same company for almost 10 years, and she's heard me vent about Mary, so I didn't have to explain too much. My boss just reassured me that she knows my real character and would let me know if Mary tried anything. As you predicted, Mary did try to contact my boss a couple of days later, and the following is a recounting of what my boss told me. Apparently, Mary said that I needed to be fired because I was a creep and everything that happened was my fault. My boss said that was a very serious accusation to make and asked Mary to explain what proof she had. Mary claimed there was a video camera footage of the whole incident, and my boss asked her to send the video. Then Mary got flustered and said the police had it, so my boss asked her to send over a copy of the police report. Then Mary said it had a lot of private information in it, so my boss asked her to redact the private info and send it over. Then Mary said she didn't feel comfortable with that, and my boss told her that she could not take action against an employee based on word of mouth from a stranger. Then Mary shouted at her about victim blaming and hung up. Unfortunately, that was not the end of it. Last Wednesday, Mary somehow sent an email from my personal email account with a gross picture, not me, to the entire office. My best guess is that I must have left my email logged in on one of my in-laws' devices. She's definitely not smart enough to actually hack me. At this point, it was clear we had to escalate things legally. I really wanted to avoid it, but she forced my hand. My wife and I have a lawyer friend who helped us draft a cease and desist letter outlining her continued harassment and the material and emotional damage this is causing us. My wife then sent a message to Mary and my in-laws with a copy of the letter and made it very clear that we would pursue criminal and/or civil proceedings if her harassment continued. My wife's mom then called her crying and begged her to just let it go and leave Mary alone. My wife calmly explained that Mary is the only person responsible for this whole situation and that their parents have always enabled her awful behavior. She also said something she later regretted, but I think was pretty mean. Mary is going to stick you two in a nursing home and steal your money the minute she has the chance, and you deserve it. After the way her mom reacted, my wife is firmly settled on cutting them off completely. This happened on Friday, and on Sunday, Mary's best frenemy, Anne, sent my brother a message on Facebook to say Mary is going to leave us alone and to please not sue her. I told my brother not to respond, then just sat and enjoyed the idea that Mary was out there somewhere freaking out about the potential of having to actually face the consequences of her actions. It must be such a strange feeling for her. Since then, we haven't heard a peep from the grapevine. It feels like things are finally starting to go back to normal. My wife is starting therapy next week, and we'll be starting couples therapy in a month or two. She wants to do some work on herself first. She's also taking a short leave from work to rest and recharge. I'm so proud of her for standing up for herself with her family and finally putting her mental health and well-being first. Final update. Mary and my in-laws have pretty much left us alone. My mother-in-law still tries to contact my wife every now and then, but she's made it clear to her family that if the first words out of their mouths aren't, "I'm sorry," she isn't interested in a conversation. As you can see, the past 6 months have made my wife learn to stand up for herself. She has done some amazing work in therapy, and her confidence is growing all the time. It's not just with her family. She's more comfortable asserting herself at work, with strangers, with friends, etc. She's even stopped putting up with some of my crap. To be fair, that crap is stuff like me leaving my socks everywhere around the house, but I'm seriously proud of her for telling me to cut it out. I'm becoming a more responsible and supportive partner, because she's able to communicate her needs and expectations without feeling guilty about it, and I'm able to communicate things to her without intense emotions fully eclipsing the conversation. I didn't mention this in my earlier posts, but my wife does struggle with rejection sensitivity even outside of our family. Often, if I brought up something that I felt needed to change, her emotional reaction to feeling like she did something wrong would be really intense, and instead of dealing with the problem, it would become about regulating her emotions. Now my wife has really good coping tools that allow her to talk about the problem without thinking she is the problem. And the biggest update? She's pregnant. We have a baby girl due in February. I'm so excited. We're going to love her so much and teach her that she is more than her beauty. She's going to have happy parents who love each other and work through issues as a team. The toxic cycle will be broken. Jenna's family doesn't know, and she's not sure if or when she'll tell them. But if she does, there are going to be strong boundaries in place for how they can be a part of our daughter's life. And it'll start with family therapy. For now, she has one set of grandparents that will go to the end of the earth for her, and that's more than enough. My family has been absolutely incredible in their support, and they are so excited for us. Things are looking better than they ever have before. Am I the jerk for divorcing my pregnant wife because she looked into my phone? My wife started jokingly making snide comments that I was having an affair. I thought she was teasing me, so I mostly ignored her or laughed with her. I didn't know she was actually serious. Then she was getting more irritated and arguments increased. In one argument, I asked her what her problem was, and she told me that I'm cheating. She started telling me all the time I was late from work, or how I was staring at a woman in the park, etc. I tried to explain everything and resolve her doubts. I even offered her therapy to clear her doubts. Then she started demanding to see my cell phone. I was like, nope, I don't have to do it. I never asked to see her phone, by the way. She told me if I have nothing to hide, I should do it. I told her she should just trust me, and I should not have to give proof of my honesty to her. But she would not let it go, so I unlocked it and told her, if she looks into my phone, we are done. She checked my phone, and I just went numb. Of course, she didn't find anything. I never cheated, and I don't plan to ever cheat. I told her I will move out, and we can figure out the rest. She freaked out and tried to apologize, but there is no going back. Now she's blaming it on pregnancy hormones, saying she was having dreams that I was cheating. I understand that, but she should have trusted me. I don't have to provide proof. It should be implicit, otherwise, why marry me? If she was having bad thoughts, we could have just talked it out, gone to therapy. She should not have put me in this position. It's very insulting that my own wife needs proof of my fidelity. That she thinks that I'm some kind of a person who would cheat on his wife, pregnant wife on top of that. She called her parents and they called mine, and they're all trying to make me forgive her. I've made up my mind. She crossed the line. It's over. I just feel sad. I had planned a lot of things. I had spent countless hours baby-proofing my house. I just wanted a happy family for myself, and it's all gone. Now I have to figure out how to be a single parent. My phone is buzzing all day. I've stopped replying to texts and receiving calls. I do think I have a right to be trusted in my own marriage without having to give proof every step of the way. Edit. I largely work from home. I did not spend lots of time away from her. I have to go to work 2 days a week. Notice how it's my house. I bought the house we live in before I met my wife, but it's currently our home. Yeah, this guy is looking to get out. When you tell your kid, Mommy and Daddy got divorced because she looked at my phone, do you think that will sound like a reasonable reason as to why you are not an everyday aspect of this kid's life? Dude here who had a pregnant wife recently. The hormones are real. It's not something we're capable of understanding the full extent of, but they're very real and very per person. My wife thought I was cheating too, even though she always knew I had zero time to. A female client who was very bubbly sent a few texts, and it worsened her suspicion. When they gain the weight, they feel more insecure and it compounds it. From dude to dude, you're the jerk. But chalk it up to ignorance and being a dumb, naive dude who, thankfully, won't ever understand what it's like to have your body create chemicals that alter every part of your body, brain included. Well, I knew a woman who, every time she was pregnant, became super suspicious and antagonistic towards her husband. She came and stayed with us for a couple of weeks. She seemed rational and lucid, but after every pregnancy, she went back to her normal self. She would just go crazy from hormones. I'm not minimizing the hurt you feel, but she literally may not be in her right mind, and so some grace might be in order. Not the jerk. You have every right to divorce her over this. If the man was the one looking through his wife's phone, everyone would be telling her that he's too jealous, insecure, and controlling, and she needs to divorce him. It's not okay for her to do this, no matter how much people want to justify it. You never have to stay with someone who doesn't trust you and violates your privacy like this, pregnant or not. Leave her, and hopefully she will learn to respect her future partner's privacy and stop with the massive red flags. This isn't the 50s anymore, and divorce exists for reasons exactly like this. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy ever asked to see my phone, I'd be like, sure, here you go. And when you're done, check out those pictures of the spider that I took this morning.
My recently engaged friend implied that I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend doesn't actually want to get married. My friend Elise, 29 female, is engaged to Rick, who's 32, and I, 29 female, am dating Luke, who's 31 male. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2, and I've been with Luke for 3 years. Fake names. So Elise and Rick had their engagement party Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not gonna lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me though, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her, like how it happened. She told me on their first date, she told him that he had a deadline. I asked what she meant, and she said that she told Rick she wasn't going to wait around 2, 3, 4, or 5 years for a man, any man, not him in particular, to marry her. She said she wants kids with the right guy, but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have the house, and now they're getting married. Another one of her friends, don't know her age, but I'll call her Heidi, said she was shocked it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, well, it wasn't an ultimatum, it was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I'll be moving on, period. I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said Luke probably isn't the right one, if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last, and it doesn't mean someone is the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love and knew life wouldn't be easy, but she's prepared to make it work. She also said she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine, so long as your partner feels the same, but that marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who so clearly didn't have the same values as her. That's when Heidi asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem, just stating a fact. Then Heidi asked how long I had been with Luke. I said 3 years, and she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes, and when she asked what about Luke, I just excused myself to the restroom. Not much else happened at the party, but when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant, and he said, verbatim, only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right. So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course. And I asked, then why aren't we engaged? We've been together longer than they have. He said he wasn't ready yet, and our relationship was fine the way it was. I asked how long did he have to wait to know, and he shrugged and said, does it matter? We're together, and that's what's important. The conversation paused for a minute, and then Luke asked me to not be like Elise. He said that he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way. He's good friends with Rick. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at rings. He said I could, but to not get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready, and he said even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. I never asked her how much it was, but center diamond is 2 carats, and the rest of the band is covered in diamonds. I remember she was asked once how much it was. She wouldn't answer, but said that Rick bought a ring he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved money to purchase it debt-free. I didn't mention that to Luke, but her telling me that came back when Luke said he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. Only $1,500 on a ring? Is that not a lot of money to you? I'm not really sure why, but the conversation with Luke and Elise has made me very sad. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications, but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke based on our conversation Sunday. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it's all I can think about. Did Elise go about it the right way? Is Luke wasting my time? I don't know. Both of those conversations Sunday have me feeling like something is off. Update. Elise and Rick will have been together 3.5 years by the time they get married. I also think I gave the wrong impression of their relationship. Elise didn't demand a proposal from Rick, and she was surprised when it came. They honestly sound like they just had a whirlwind of romance. She also didn't say she had to be married by the end of 2 years, but that you should know if you want to marry her by the end of 2 years and be ready to be engaged so long as financially, work-wise, and in personal life everything's okay. They were together for a year and a couple months before he proposed. He did not propose at 6 months. He told Luke he knew she was the one at 6 months and started looking for rings then, but they got engaged later than that. Also, I don't care how much Elise's ring costs or how big it is. I didn't include that part because I was being petty. I was annoyed because Luke basically told me I don't get his say in what I'd be wearing. He developed the budget on his own without talking to me about it, and he knows next to nothing about jewelry and has never even asked me what I like. I always thought he'd do what Rick and other mutual friends did, which is look together, develop the budget together, and then pick what he thinks I would like. Rick didn't have the money for Elise's ring, his own words, so he made a financially sound decision to save up for a ring he knew she'd like but wouldn't break their bank either. I figured Luke was going to do the same thing, but apparently he had no intentions of doing so. Lastly, someone mentioned that Rick doesn't have as much going on as Luke does, which isn't true. I don't know what Rick actually does, but he works for a major company in the financial department. He's not an accountant, but he basically supervises all the money coming and going, sort of like a treasurer. Elise is a school guidance counselor, so both are very educated. No kids outside of their relationship. They're doing okay. Anyway, with me and Luke, he is very much go with the flow, more than I thought actually. The reason I didn't reply to my first thread is because I decided to talk to Luke first. Long story short, we broke up. Several comments said I needed to communicate what I wanted clearly to Luke, so I took an hour to write out what I really wanted in the next couple of years and then told Luke the night I posted the first thread. I told him that after 3 years, we should be seriously considering the next step. I told him I wanted kids, and with my age, I'm scared of health problems and complications, especially with lockdown overtaking the hospitals around us. I told him that before we buy a house, we were looking, that I want at least to be engaged like Rick and Elise were. That's not a comparison per se, but I reflected on this, and I think buying a house with a boyfriend who can't tell me when he wants to be engaged isn't very smart. Elise and Rick were engaged when they bought their house, so were several of our married friends, and I realized that's the minimum stage in a relationship I want to be in before purchasing a home. Luke's reaction was not pleasant. He told me he felt like I was trapping him in a corner and demanding a ring when I wasn't. I told him I wanted a plan and to see if we were on the same page, but I wasn't expecting a ring tomorrow or anything, just over the next year or so. He told me he'll propose when he's ready, and me bringing it up over and over again is making him not want to do it because he thinks I just want a ring. But I don't. I want a family. But I don't want to be one of those women who has a kid with a man who doesn't actually want the same things I do. I told him that he doesn't seem like he wants to get married, and that's when he said it. Luke told me he wants to get married, but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me particularly. When I asked why, he said he doesn't think I have enough ambition. Luke wants to get a promotion at his job. He works in marketing. He's going to school for his master's, and he's into self-improvement, like going to the gym and eating healthier and mental health books. He said he felt I just wanted a marriage and kids, and then I would be a stay-at-home mom, which he doesn't want me to do. He wants me to work, but I work as a secretary for psychology service. Luke makes almost 3 times as much as I do, and I don't want to go back to school. I hated it the first time, and I can't afford to do it again, even if I wanted to. Plus, I love my job. Great pay, great benefits, and my bosses and coworkers are really cool. But he told me that was an excuse, and he doesn't want to be tied to someone who is, as he said, okay with just being okay, and that he wants more than that out of life. I was angry because I feel like I've asked this of him before, and he always said he wants to marry me. I did tell him before I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom if financially we could afford it, and I guess he didn't want me to. So I told him I was done with the conversation, and he's been staying at a friend's house. I messaged him a couple of times to try and talk to him since, but he only responds saying he thinks we're on different pages and the relationship needs to be done so we can find what we want. I'm really sad and upset and feel like I wasted my time and that Elise was right. Luke took our relationship status off of Facebook and a ton of people have been asking what happened. His responses to my text messages also just seem so cold. From what I've heard from mutual friends, he sounds like he's doing okay and went out Friday night, New Year's Eve, with some of his friends to a bar. No, I have not talked to Elise, though she did reach out, but that's what happened. I was the first one to get married out of my friends and my husband's friends. We hadn't been together very long relative to our friends' relationships. Soon after our wedding, half of them were engaged, half were broken up. I think weddings can really make people think about their lives and their futures and see what it is they really want instead of just floating along and not discussing things. One of my biggest regrets is staying with someone I assumed would eventually catch up with me on marriage. The fact that she knew her boyfriend was not going to react well to that and would break up, but thought her friend was wrong to voice what she wanted was sad. And what her ex said about her? Oof. He should have broken up with her before. Also, I think her friend was pretty smart for saying exactly what she expected on her first date. This is a good way to find out if the person you're looking to date wants the same things as you, and she was right. Hope OP learns that she can ask for a timeline when it comes to relationships. OP sounds absolutely unbearable. I know it paints a picture that she is the victim of him not knowing what he wants, but it sounds like he was just fine and just waiting for the right moment, exploring the relationship and building his life, while she sat and pined after a ring, and to be provided for while she stayed at home and did nothing. They obviously have different values at the point of confrontation, but that isn't on him to forecast where things will go. I don't know, my partner and I have an atypical dynamic, so maybe I just don't get the whining because boyfriend didn't do exactly what the friends do, so therefore he's bad and the relationship is bad, and now it's time to prod him into making a decision when in 3 years an explicit description, OP knows he likes to let his heart lead and not be given ultimatums. Mess around and find out. Surprised at everyone blaming the guy here. Sounds to me that they never had the conversation, but because the guy doesn't want marriage and the girl does, that he's automatically the jerk? As for $1,500, that should be more than ample for any ring. If my wife was looking at rings worth that much, it would be a red flag to me. Hers cost around $400. There's nothing wrong with wanting different things. Doesn't make the guy the one in the wrong then. Sounds to me he thought all was sweet and got blindsided. This is something that should have been talked about years ago to make sure both were on the same page. I'm a big believer of the 2-year rule. If you can't decide by that time if you want to be with someone, then you're wasting your years. I hear about relationships that last 5, 7, 10 years only to break up. Then you have two people in their late 30s or early 40s when the best years have passed, and especially a woman's most fertile years. Sure, there's no way of knowing if a marriage will last, but at least you tried it. You didn't stay trapped in a relationship for the better part of your adult life. I just hope she isn't angry with Elise. She opened her eyes. Poor OP. I spent 3 years with a guy who made me believe he would propose at some point and never did. Eventually we broke up because he realized he didn't want kids at all. But it wasn't too long after I found someone who was ridiculously compatible with me and who wanted the exact same things and had the same values as me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex-boyfriend? Please let us know.
We all have our ideal lives that we want, and sometimes it doesn't align with the person we're dating. It's okay to call it quits and find someone who wants the same things that you do.
Especially when it's going to save your future self a fortune by preventing an unnecessary divorce. My Karen sister volunteers me to babysit my neighbor's kids. I, 22 female, have a sister who's 26 who's going away this weekend with her husband who's 40 for a little getaway, which will be their first time since having their son, who's 1. So my sister came over to visit today and she brought my nephew. She was going to be here for about 2 hours or so, and my sister saw my next door neighbors. My sister spoke to my neighbor and said that she and her husband are going away for the weekend, so my nephew is going to be staying here with me for the weekend, and it's his first time without his parents. My neighbor, who has 3 kids and a husband herself, mentioned she's also going away this weekend as she's going to see a friend and she's looking for a babysitter also. My sister actually told my neighbor that her kids could come stay next door with me since I'm already babysitting my nephew. Here's the thing, my neighbor's husband will be home and he has the weekend off and they're his kids. When I found out my sister said the neighbor's kids were coming over, I said they were not. I only agreed to babysit my nephew. My sister thinks I'm being harsh and selfish, and she thinks because I'm child-free, that's why I'm being so rude about not wanting to babysit my next-door neighbor's kids. However, if next door asked me, it would still be a no, because the dad will be home and he can watch them. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The nerve of your sister. I would have told her to go tell the neighbor the answer is no immediately, or I would hand her kid back to her and not ever offer to babysit again. Not the jerk. It sounds like their dad will be home, he needs to parent his own kids. She volunteered you without consulting you. There's a huge difference between just a 1-year-old and 4 kids total. And if your sister is that pressed for someone to watch your neighbor's kids, she can do it for them when she gets back in town. My parents are kicking me, 18 male, out. My stepdad claims I've done nothing with my life and I have no direction. My parents divorced at an early age. My stepdad was strict, but he was a good father. I'm the oldest. Due to lockdown, I didn't go to college this year. I skipped it, and rightfully so, as I have health issues. I'm taking classes online. I don't work and haven't for at least 2 weeks. I left my job at GameStop after they stopped giving me hours and they weren't promoting me. My stepdad came in while I was finishing up some coursework. He told me I had 2 weeks to get out or he was forcing me out. I asked him why, and he says I have no direction, no goal. I'm doing nothing with my life. I'm 18. You can't seriously expect me to figure my life out. But he disagrees and claims, yes, I should have a good idea what I want. He says that a parent's job is done after I turn 18. All I do is play video games. I don't have girls over, no friends. We're in a lockdown. I only go out to work. Buzz off. I'm wasting away inside when I should be doing more. I told him I was looking for a better full-time job that had a good career path, and I was taking online classes. I even offered to pay rent. He said no. From his point of view, I'm wasting away and he won't allow me to become a loser. Adversity brings innovation and strength and life will be hard, but he knows that I will look back and thank him one day. I don't know what else to do. I feel like he thinks I'm worthless. I spent a lot of time inside last year for good reasons. We're in a lockdown. I don't want anything to happen to me. Am I being unreasonable? My dad says yes. Yes, I am. I just don't know what to do. This isn't really just him. My mom mostly goes along with what he says, but I don't know. How can I convince her to convince him to let me stay? Or is my dad justified? Am I a loser for not having any plans past 18? Your parents have zero obligation to support you. What, so I'm just supposed to dump them and hope for the best at 18? I won't take care of you when you're old by that logic. You failed to consider them and just presumed that you could stay there indefinitely without even asking them. Then you didn't go to college. Then you quit your job. Speaking as a parent, that's what set your dad off. OP, you didn't read. I went to online classes. I guess this lockdown doesn't even exist to you, does it? I forget. You morons always act as if it isn't real. Your reasons for avoiding college and quitting your job don't sound particularly strong. OP, you're a moron. Go figure. A lockdown isn't enough. I'd rather not get sick and possibly not make it. I've already had a friend pass. Don't know why that's not a good enough reason. Without another job to replace it, you just sound entitled. OP, you don't read, do you? I left because I was going nowhere and getting no hours. I'll give you no job lined up, but buzz off. I made a mistake. I didn't realize it was my first job. Not everyone is perfect like you. I wanted something more hours, not 8 to 12 hours a week. That's nonsense. I was only making barely anything. It was my first job. You're a super jerk. You're probably making yourself look a little better in this interaction, and fair enough. By your own description, this is in character for your stepdad, and he's likely trying to help you and motivate you. If I had to guess, he's probably tried to give you advice and direction, but is maybe thinking you just want the free ride. Don't give up hope. If they've been good to you this far, work with them to find your path. Life can be so much easier not doing it alone with your family's support and resources of time, money, and experience. Put aside your video games and see if they want to spend more time together where you can discuss these things naturally and let them feel like they're a part of your life and you value their opinions. Just some thoughts to see if anything rings true. OP, I got advice. Work harder and never settle for less. I was tired of so little hours at GameStop. I begged, I busted my tail, and got no reward. No thanks. Nothing but more cut hours. So, he says all you do is play video games. How close is this to the truth? You eventually need to become a productive member of society who is financially self-sufficient. Your parents should reinforce that. You should be working or else training for a job or getting educated, or both. You just quit a job with no better job to move into. Bad idea. Are you spending 40 hours a week looking for another one? If not, start doing this now. 60 hours a week if you're in danger of being kicked out. Generally, the rule is don't quit a job until you have a better one. It's okay if you don't know what you want to train for at 18. In that case, work minimum wage jobs until you figure it out. Then take classes to get that job. If you can afford it, go to college. A satisfying high-wage job with great promotions is not going to fall into your lap. See if you can get a job and stay at home. Trying to live independently is no joke. Living in a shelter will get everything you have stolen, even your shoes. Don't go there. OP, it is true. In my defense, it's miserable. I'm not used to being indoors, but this lockdown has made everything so bad. My area is just horrible. I'm so afraid to really risk my life. I risked my life working at GameStop, and now I had my shot, so I'm not as afraid. But yeah, I have underlying health issues, and I'm afraid of getting sick. I guess that makes me a failure. I realize I should risk my life to make money. Update. I lied. Okay, I'm sorry, Reddit. I admit I lied. I know the reason and always have. It's the same reason my parents divorced. My anger issues. It's the reason why I quit my job. I got angry and stormed out without really being a mature adult about it. My parents see the writing on the wall, and they see that it's only getting worse. I confronted my mom, and after a shouting match, she came up to my room and tearfully told me, "This is why we want you gone. You can't control your anger and it scares us." I fly off the handle at the slightest provocation. When I play games, I get super game rage, and I destroy things. I do have a habit of breaking things. Stepdad told me they'll let me stay if I get help and prove that I can control my anger. He thinks maybe if I have direction or goals, I can manage my anger. But I have to prove that I can. Until I do, I have to get out. They're afraid of me. They're afraid of my anger, and they don't know what else to do. They've tried talking to me before. They can't afford therapy. They just hope that it would go away. But it hasn't, and frankly, it's getting much worse. I don't disagree. I exploded in rage on someone last thread. I got so mad that I broke my keyboard in rage. Over what? A comment I didn't like. Don't even ask what I did when they initially told me I was being kicked out. But yeah, I have anger issues, and I don't know how to control them. I'm sorry for the deception. I just didn't want to admit that I have anger problems. I still see myself as innocent. I know deep down I messed up, but my emotions say otherwise. Emotional self-control is one of the hardest things to teach someone, especially if it's not taught when they're young. I know someone with anger issues. Luckily, his parents had the means to get him into therapy when he was a preteen, and that helped him get a handle on things. I can only imagine how difficult it is for both OP and his parents. I know what it feels like when it seems your emotions are controlling you and not the other way around, as I assume most of us have at one point or another. I hope he's able to get a handle on things, but I know it's not that easy and not likely something he'll be able to do on his own. Well, that's it. No good boy points for you. No tendies for you. With intense gamer rage like this, no wonder they're kicking you out. Something tells me you spend a lot of time on Discord and drinking high fructose-laden carbonated beverages. Am I the jerk for going to my sister's dream school when she just got rejected? So I got into Cornell last week. Honestly, I thought it was a fluke. I'm not smart at all. I got a 28 ACT, a decent GPA, because my school grade inflates considerably. I had some decent extracurriculars, but nothing remotely competitive enough to get me into a school at Cornell. But anyways, my twin sister is the opposite of me. She's a genius. She has way more impressive stats, 34 ACT, and she only took it once, compared to my 3 times. She has way better grades, way cooler extracurriculars. Everyone always looked up to her as the smart one. I didn't and still don't mind, it's true. The only reason I can fathom I got in and she didn't is that she applied to the engineering college while I applied to arts and sciences. I don't know if too many of you guys are familiar with Cornell, but they have a bunch of different colleges you can apply to, each with their different admission criteria. Well, last week, decisions for Ivies came out. Unfortunately for my sister, she didn't get into a single one, including her first choice, Cornell. She checked as soon as it was available and called me bawling. I consoled her and told her everything was going to be okay, that who cares what school you go to, that she was brilliant and was going to be successful no matter where she goes. Well, anyways, I pretty much resolved that I was getting rejected, so I didn't even bother to look at my email until later that night. Well, I guess surprises do happen sometimes because I'm a Cornellian. I got in. I just don't know how, but I did. I really want to go, but this would devastate my sister. All week she's been crying and solemn and sad. She's been angry at her friends who got into top schools, especially the ones with lower stats. She's decided to go to NYU, but she just hasn't been herself. I haven't told our parents. I think they assumed I didn't get in because she didn't. Am I being selfish? Should I just go with her to NYU? We always thought we were going to go to school together, but it's Cornell. I couldn't in a million years imagine that I'd get in. I've been researching obsessively about it, and I can't shake the desire that if I don't go, I'll regret it. Ithaca looks beautiful. It's a small town, which I would love to get away with from the huge city that is New York. It seems like a dream opportunity. Am I being a bad sister? I know she would be upset. We were supposed to go to school together. It would crush her. I really don't have anyone else to talk to. Am I the jerk for going to her dream school, especially considering how much harder she's worked compared to me? Update. So everyone told me that I should go, so I decided to tell my sister. Well, she started screaming from excitement and got, not actually, mad that how couldn't I tell her earlier, and she's so proud of me. But seconds later, her excitement just turned to sadness. She went from super giddy to depressed in seconds, and she started bawling, uncontrollably bawling. I tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away and locked herself in our room. I'm going to give her some alone time right now, and we can talk more about it later. Update 2. So my sister sent me a text, and it said, "I'm sorry for how I reacted. Please don't be mad. I'm so happy for you and your accomplishments. It's just that after I got rejected, I at least had the consolation that I get to go to school with you and we can be together. But now you're going to where I wanted to be, and I'm just so sad. I worked so hard and did everything I could to go to the best school I can, and I just feel like all my hard work was just wasted effort. I'm sorry I'm ranting. I just need more time." I'm not going to lie. When I read this, I cried. A lot of you are saying that I obviously must have attributes that made me desirable, but I really don't. I don't deserve my acceptance. I did my homework between classes, barely studied for anything, took the easiest AP classes available, etc. Meanwhile, I see my sister always taking the hardest classes, studying as hard as she can, always volunteering. She deserves it, not me, and seeing her so hurt pains me. I'm really strongly just considering going to NYU with her. Everyone at Cornell will be just like her, and I don't stand a chance. And I know if I go to Cornell, we're going to drift apart, which would suck because we're best friends, and I just don't want to lose my sister. Update 3. So I told my parents, and they did not react how I would have expected them to. First, they tried to insist that Cornell made a mistake between our applications. Then they went on to explain how I should go to NYU with my sister. I thought it was strange because they definitely would have supported my sister going to Cornell if I didn't get in. My sister apparently thought so too, because she asked why would I not go to Cornell, and they said how unfair it was that I basically slacked off in high school and was able to go when my sister was the hard-working one who busted her tail at school. I don't know if I'm being dramatic, but that hurt. I knew they always thought my sister was the smarter one. They've made it clear multiple times. But to hear them say that I don't deserve my spot really sucked, even though they're probably right. I stood there in silence, but my sister stood up for me. She asked them how could they say something so cruel to their daughter, that I 100% have every right to be there, and that they should apologize for being so rude. My parents were shocked because we're both very passive people, and neither of us ever talked to them like that before. This started an argument, and long story short, we're currently in our rooms. I'm just so thankful to have her stand up for me. I realize that I have internalized a lot of the comments they've made over the years. I'm glad I have my sister who actually believes in me. I still don't know if I want to go to NYU or Cornell, mostly because I just don't want to go to school without her. She's my best friend, and going 4 years without someone who just thinks so positively about you just seems so long. At the end of the day, I always thought the NYU was going to be the school I was going to, so I wouldn't lose much by choosing it over Cornell. I'm going to talk about it more with my sister and look into both schools more. Update. So later that day, my parents actually came to me and apologized for everything. I know everyone in the last post really hated them, but my parents are actually good people. They have flaws, but we all do. They knew I was smart and even encouraged me to apply to schools like Cornell. They just automatically assumed my sister would get in, especially versus me, which if you look at our scores, I can't say they should be blamed. Nevertheless, they realized that they were being jerks, and they apologized for making me feel like I'm not as capable as my sister. That they were shocked, but it was no excuse for what they said or how they made me feel, and they loved me and apologized for what they said. And for the moment you've all been waiting for, I decided that I want to go to Cornell. It was such a tough choice and wasn't made without serious consideration, but ultimately I'll be happier in Ithaca. Plus, my sister is going to try to transfer after our freshman year. If she still wants to go, she may find that she loves NYU after all that time. Whatever she decides, I have no doubt she will be extremely successful. Plus, it'll be good to spend some time apart from each other and grow as people. NYC is only a short bus ride away, so we can definitely see each other during holidays and breaks. I want to thank everyone for their overwhelmingly positive support. Am I the jerk for insisting on living with my dad to attend a better school? I'm 15, male, living with my mom since she and my dad divorced. My dad just got married to a woman with 2 sons who are 13 and 8, and they all moved into her house. Where I'm currently living with my mom isn't great, especially compared to where my dad lives now. Even the schools there are much better. My school doesn't send students to top universities, while this other school sends students to them, so it's a huge difference. I talked to my mom about it, and she thought it might be a good idea for me to live with my dad for the sake of the better school, so I brought up the idea to my dad. He told me he needed to think about it and would get back to me. After a few days, he told me it wasn't possible. Naturally, I asked him why, and he explained that their house only has 3 bedrooms, theirs and 1 for each of his sons. He said this is a new phase in their lives, and they need time to adjust to living together. He also mentioned that my stepbrothers and I haven't spent much time together, so there's a chance of conflicts arising. He thinks I should get to know my stepbrothers better before making a big change that could disrupt the family dynamics. I didn't agree with his answer though. I told him I'd be totally fine sharing a room with my 13-year-old stepbrother, and we've never had any issues when we've hung out. I also pointed out that saying no to this opportunity could seriously affect my college plans, given that the school in that area is much better. I explained that I spend a lot of time at school studying or in extracurricular activities, so I'll not impact a lot in family dynamics. I'm very obedient, and I'll do all chores that they need done at the house. I'll spend the weekends at my mom's house. But he stuck to his decision. I really want to move in, so I reached out to my grandparents and uncles to talk to my dad. They had a chat with him, and he called me afterward pretty angry. He said I should have accepted his first answer, and now the whole family is against him, thinking he's not acting correctly. I want to live with my dad, but I can't seem to get him to be cool with it. I get that their house doesn't have enough rooms for each kid, but I'm willing to share. I understand it's a different dynamic for those used to having a room to themselves, but it's new for me too. I admit I don't know my stepbrothers that well, but up to now, I've never had any relationship issues with anyone in my life. I've always been respectful and helped with chores, and that wouldn't change now. I don't understand where the fear that I could cause harm to them is coming from. I genuinely see this opportunity as very important, but I'm at a loss for how to convince my dad to let me live with them. I'm in need of ideas. I know you're only a teen, but you need to grow up a bit here. You're being very selfish. Why would you want to be somewhere you're clearly not wanted? It's your stepmom's house. It's not like your dad bought the house with her. OP. First, I'll be there every weekend because it's also my dad's house. Actually, if I attend school there, I'll spend Monday through Thursday there, and I'll be with my mom on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's just one day of difference. Second, there's a significant distinction if I go to school in my dad's district or my mom's district. I want to get into a good college. College can make a huge difference in life. Update. Well, I guess any chance of me studying near my stepmom's house is over. A few days ago, I messaged my dad asking what time he'd pick me up on Friday to spend the weekend at their place. He didn't respond, so I asked again, and he said he wouldn't be picking me up, that I wouldn't be spending the weekend there. I asked why, and he said it's not his weekend, it's the next one. I was really upset by this because he never used the weekend is his or not excuse. Before he got married, we spent practically every weekend together. To me, this showed that he truly chose his new family over me. He knew I was already upset about the school situation, and he did this to show me that I'm not welcome there. I told him that it's okay for him to choose his new family, but he didn't need to pick me up anymore, that he could just forget I exist and I'd do the same. I logged into Instagram, which I don't use, to block him, and I saw a picture of him at an amusement park with my stepbrothers, and he had written, "Me and my boys." He didn't even invite me to go with them. I have no idea when that was. He truly excluded me from his life. I got even more furious and sent him a message telling him to enjoy having 2 sons now instead of just 1, and that I wanted him to go buzz off. My dad called me multiple times. I answered once, and he started scolding me, saying I'm acting like a kid, and I hung up on him and didn't pick up again. He sent several messages saying he wants to talk to me. I was really naive in this whole situation. He replaced me months ago. I couldn't bike to school because of the knee surgeries I had, and I just realized now that he never once took me to school. It was always my grandparents or my mom. Lately, I've seen him very little, and I thought it was because of the surgeries and recovery, but apparently he only had space for every other weekend, whereas before his new family, he was always available for me. My mom is upset with me too. She says I lost my reason, that I have to talk to my dad, that I'm not behaving appropriately. As far as I'm concerned, I'll never talk to my dad again. Now I'm going to spend the night staying in my room because if I step out, my mom's going to try to force me to talk to him. I don't know if I'm doing right or wrong, but right now I'm just really angry and sad. I never thought my dad could replace me like this. I thought he truly cared about me. Edit. People are saying that my mom is taking my dad's side. Nope. She doesn't want me to be in a fight with my dad. She's saying that we need to talk, listen to each other. I guess no mom wants her kid to be in a fight with her dad. But I don't want to talk to my dad though. Update. He sent a lot of messages last night. He's saying that we need to talk in person, that I'm misunderstanding everything. He came over early this morning, but I told my mom I didn't want to talk to him and I locked myself in my room. He wants to come tonight and talk. Update 2. I talked to my dad, but I told him I'd only talk if my mom were there too. The 3 of us sat down at the table. My mom said I should be the first to speak, but when I started talking, she said it wasn't what I should say and that I should apologize first. So I apologized to my dad for the language I used. Then right after, my mom said I'm grounded for 2 weeks for my language, stating that nothing justifies what I said to him. It's my first time being grounded in my life. Then it was my dad's turn to talk. He said I'm being immature and unfair. He explained that he has other people in his life who are important now, so he can't give me the same attention as before. I tried to talk, and my mom told me to listen quietly and that I'd have my chance to speak later. He mentioned that I act like everything has to be according to my will and circled back to the school situation. He told my mom that I talked to my grandparents and uncles, and my mom got upset about that, adding another week to my grounding. And when I tried to complain, she said she was disappointed in me for not understanding that I should respect my parents' decisions. So I figured it would be better not to argue further as it would extend my grounding. So I'm grounded for 3 weeks now, both for my language I used with my dad and not respecting his decision. Finally, he said he's always done everything to be present in my life and give me the best that he can. He said he feels unjustly treated after years of dedication, and I treat him like he's done nothing for me. I have to agree that he was very present and dedicated until recently, but I can't feel that anymore. When I started talking, my mom said if my tone got aggressive, the conversation would end, as it's meant to be a friendly discussion, not a fight. I tried to stay as calm as possible so that the conversation wouldn't end before I could express what I was thinking. I said I understood that there are more people I need to share my dad's attention with now. However, these people are always with him since they live together, and the little time I'd have with him would only be on weekends. I mentioned that for the first time, he brought up the legal aspect that I'm only entitled to be with him every other weekend. I said this showed that he deliberately chose to decrease the time we spend together. I also said that having new people around doesn't mean he can forget about my feelings or me. I told him that the photo he posted at the amusement park with the caption, "Me and my boys," hurt me deeply. My mom hadn't seen the photo, so I showed it to her, and she was upset with my dad too. I said I understood the difficulty of me moving to my stepmom's house, but I felt extremely unjustly treated by the arguments presented. It was as if my stepbrother's difficulty sharing a room with me was just as important as a good educational opportunity for me. I said he should be concerned about my future, but it seems like the only opinions that matter are those of his new kids. He said I was misinterpreting things, but that he'd be more careful about posting pictures and captions that could hurt me. About the weekend issue, he said we're all still adjusting, and indeed, he'd like me to be able to come over every weekend like it used to be. But now he needs more predictability since more people are involved. I mentioned again that he was putting others' desires ahead of mine and that my wishes were never a priority compared to theirs. This showed me that he had preferences. He fell silent for a moment and then said he'd fix the situation. I'll always be welcome to visit and stay where he lives. He also said he wouldn't bring up the every other weekend visitation arrangement again. He said the school issue is more complicated, but that he's still looking into a solution. He again said I need to understand that circumstances change and I'm still his priority, but now there are more people involved. He mentioned he knows it's not easy for a 15-year-old, but I'm smart enough to know that he's speaking the truth. He invited me to spend the weekend with him, but I declined, saying I don't feel welcome at the moment. He said he loves me and that if I ever doubt that at any point, I can call him. So that's where we are. We're at a bit of an impasse. He's been sending me several messages every day to show that he's there for me. I feel like I'm being a bit unfair to him. On the other hand, I feel like his new family doesn't want me around. Imagine already only seeing your kid, who you love supposedly, during the weekends, and then telling them that you don't even want to see them then. The dad trying to play the victim here is quite funny to read. Who needs a biological kid when OP's dad can look like a hero for fathering stepkids? I feel bad for OP. Neither of his parents seem to be looking out for him. This dad is dropping his kid for the new shiny ones, and I have no doubt his wife is egging this on. The "you can come over anytime" will be short-lived. So much of what his dad said is such blatant BS, and I'm surprised mom didn't call him out on it. Sadly, I think OP is going to find himself abandoned in the next 6 months to a year. Goodness, I hope I'm wrong though. This poor kid is really getting the short end of the stick here. He sounds quite a bit smarter and more reasonable than any of the adults in this scenario. If dad married new stepmom without the kids ever spending enough time around each other to develop a relationship, he moved too fast. Stepmom fully bringing him into her family while excluding his son is inexcusable. Sidelining OP's education because integrating the family would be a challenge is inexcusable. Some people treat kids like inconvenient pets. This makes me so sad. His dad is obviously replacing him and just got caught in the act, and his mom seems way more worried about respect and not her son's feelings. I really hope OP has someone else in his corner. It's like everyone posting is the idiot. It's not the dad's call, it's not his house. Stepmom decides. My new neighbor is demanding I change my dog's name. I, 36 male, am the owner of a great dog named Charlotte, who's 6. I live in a lower middle-class suburb in an unspecified part of the US. I've lived here for about a year now, and I let Charlotte out to use the bathroom about 5 or 6 times a day. It's always the same routine. I open the back door, Charlotte runs outside to go to the bathroom and patrol the yard, and typically doesn't come back until I poke my head out and call out her name. About a week or 2 ago, new neighbors moved in across my back alley. I had no intentions of interacting with them whatsoever, except today when I was executing the last step of Charlotte's aforementioned potty protocol. I stuck my head out and called her name, but this time, alongside the familiar sounds of my dog galloping up, was an adult human voice shouting something along the lines of, "Why are you calling my daughter?" At first, I thought it might just be my new neighbors getting into a spat, until a couple of minutes later, I heard pounding on my front door. I opened the door to an angry woman glaring at me. She said something like, "Why are you calling my daughter over?" And I responded, "Your daughter's name is Charlotte?" And she just kept glaring at me. In absence of a response, I followed up with, "Charlotte is my dog's name." And she rolled her eyes at me and said I better change my dog's name because she doesn't want her daughter, who's 2, getting confused and running over to my house. I told her that's not going to happen because not only did my dog have the name first, we have also lived here first. Plus, I don't like strangers making demands of me before even attempting to be polite. She called me stupid and said that a human child obviously has priority over a dog for a name. I shut the door in her face and glared at her through the peephole for a moment before she eventually walked back to her house. Last potty break, I went out with Charlotte and stayed in the yard with her until she was finished, but the neighbor just kept staring at me with her arms crossed and glared at me the entire time. Not the jerk. You're not obligated to rename your dog. Continue with your usual routine. If their daughter were to come over, you just don't answer the door, or you simply tell her to go back home. You can get a restraining order or file a report if that neighbor harasses and threatens you more. Not the jerk. This is one of the dumbest requests I've ever heard. Sorry to say, but these neighbors are going to be trouble. Just don't give in to their temptations to escalate a feud. Carry on with your business and try not to let them get under your skin. Am I the jerk for not following tradition on Thanksgiving? So to start this off, I, 27 female, have been dating my husband, 34 male, since 2018. We got married 3 years into our relationship, 2021, and things have been going extremely well. We've spent 4 years of Thanksgivings at my parents' house, and this was the first time we chose to spend it at his parents' house. When we got there, my mother-in-law, her mother, and both my sister-in-laws were in the kitchen, all helping each other with the food. Me and my husband went in there and talked for a bit. My mother-in-law asked me if I would like to help out. I said, not right now. Would it be okay if I come back soon and help out a bit? She very nicely said it was totally fine and told me and my husband to get us something to drink and hang out with the men and the kids. My husband gave me a nasty look and said, "You're not even going to help?" His mother said that they were more than enough people and she just asked me in case I wanted to help with the cooking, but that they all managed just fine. He grabbed a beer for only himself and went into the living room. I did the same and followed after. I ended up helping them with setting everything up on the tables as I wanted to help out just a bit. His mother did not ask me to do this, neither did my sister-in-laws. Dinner went extremely well, we talked a lot, and I really like his family. When we went back to the car, he started mumbling really angrily at me. I asked him about 3 times what he was saying before he blew up at me. He told me that it's their tradition that the women are in the kitchen cooking, that I disrespected his mom in her own house by acting so entitled. We ended up having an argument about this whole thing, and he has not stopped insisting on that his mother in fact is offended by this. I have not talked to her about this. She did not tell me anything about being offended either. But I know his mom is a really nice woman who would never want to say anything bad about someone. So I'm starting to think that maybe I really disrespected her, and she just doesn't have the heart to tell me. So, am I the jerk for not following their traditions? I feel like I was the jerk because helping out would not have been that hard, and had I known the outcome, I would have just stayed and helped out. Edit. I don't know if this will help my case, but I'm working as a nurse and had just come off an 18-hour shift and went directly to mother-in-law's house, hence why I was not that keen on helping out with dinner. I could not get the day off. Don't know if that is even relevant or not. It's just my reasoning behind this. Edit 2. I've seen many people thinking this, and I've tried responding to the comments, but I did not completely ignore or disregard the female side of my in-laws. I was sat in the kitchen talking with them for most of the time, but I also went out to make small talk with the other people. Not the jerk. Oh, so now you're supposed to read your husband's mind? He's the jerk and you're not. And what are you supposed to read from his mind? That you're expected to obey outdated stereotypes? He's the jerk and you're not. It doesn't sound like you have kids yet, but if you do, I have a prediction. He will never change the diapers. Not the jerk. First of all, as a host, I would never ever ask a guest to help me. I'm hosting. If they offer, I may take them up on it, but asking a guest to help out, and especially not something quick like, "Oh, you're going to the living room? Could you take this plate of apps with you?" That just feels tacky. And OP didn't even say she wouldn't help at all, just that she didn't want to immediately. Not the jerk. I really hope you don't already have kids with this deadbeat. He sounds like the horrible type of man who would want his sons to play competitive sports and for his daughters to learn how to do things like cooking. Modern science has proven that sports are bad for boys because it makes them more competitive, which can lead to aggression and feelings of superiority. We never allowed our son to play any sports, and instead we taught him that he is not better or stronger than anyone. Instead of superhero shows, I encouraged him to watch My Little Pony because it's not violent like the Marvel shows. We are also making sure that our daughter does not learn how to cook, because when she grows up, we don't want her to attract the outdated type of man who expects her to cook and clean. I'd much rather her marry a man who loves to cook, like my husband. My husband is a great father who knows his place and has never challenged me on how we choose to raise our kids. I'd honestly divorce this guy if I were you. There are still some good men out there like my husband, but they are not easy to find. Would you like to help means put on an apron and get in here. I know that, but if you didn't know that, that's okay. It was up to your husband to tell you right then and there, in front of his mother and sisters, that it was tradition for the women to bond over service to the family. Instead, he waited several hours to have a tantrum like a kid. and acts like you embarrassed him. Please see the situation for what it really is. He thought he married a mind reader and is mad that you failed to know what was happening. He's the jerk. You're the jerk to them since it's their tradition. I'm not traditional, but I'd be a little upset if my husband didn't want to lend a helping hand for my uncles at a family gathering, if they had asked him to and he denied. I'd love the idea of helping family with no hesitation if I had nothing better to do. Even if I was tired, I would help and give a few minutes of my time while using up those few minutes to open up about my day or busy schedule and bond at the same time. 2 birds with 1 stone. Then I'd tell them I need a break because of the long shift I had. Better luck next time. Now you know their tradition. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. I'm still confused about that one commenter that said they don't allow her son to play sports. They don't want him to be competitive at all? It's like she thinks life's gonna hand you everything you need and you're not gonna have to compete for anything in life. Well, to be fair, that's how a lot of the Reddit people think the world should work. Am I the jerk for divorcing during my husband's mental health crisis? Me, 38 female, and my husband, 38 male, married in 2009, and we have a daughter who's 11. Last 3 years have been really tough on us because of my husband's bad working conditions that started to affect his mental health. I noticed signs of burnout and depression and brought up these concerns regularly to him. He was very dismissive and refused to see a situation and refused therapy. He started becoming distant and often isolated himself and was regularly butting heads with our daughter. He eventually told me that he had met a woman at work. Their relationship was not, according to him, physical, but he was in love with her and felt that she was his soulmate and best friend. He said he was very sorry and that he could not decide which woman he would ultimately be happiest with. He spoke out about this at home whilst I was having the toughest time of my life. I cried alone over my dreams and plans, everything we had together. He also told me that in order to clear his head, he would need to leave the house and spend some time on his own. That coworker had offered him her spare room and he was going to take it. I asked for his help organizing the rest of the school year as I was commuting, and I promised him that as soon as the school year was over, I would look for an apartment closer to my work, and me and our daughter will move out, and he can have the house to himself for his healing. For his healing? The only healing this bozo needs is a kick in the pants. I found an apartment almost immediately and we moved. He would visit us 1 weekend a month and brought his chaos with him every time. The new home had become a safe haven that we cherished, and he took it over as soon as he appeared, and it felt like I wasn't breathing until he finally left. After 6 months of living like this, I decided I had given things enough time to mend, and they had not. I was still hurt and bitter, and he was still cagey about what was going on and what his ultimate decision really was. I told him I was done living like this and that I wanted a divorce. He absolutely lost it and left me and drove back to our old house in the middle of the night just to get away from me. A week later, he told me that coworker is pregnant and he was angry that I didn't want to even try to fix our marriage. Wait, coworker got pregnant with this bozo? What is wrong with people? Since then, he has gotten increasingly more hostile and accusatory in his communication with me. He blames me for breaking up the marriage and abandoning him during his crisis. He says he was not himself and has no idea why he did the things he did, but that I was the one who left. He claims I was no help when he needed me and that I had clearly mentally abandoned our relationship long before, more than 3 years prior. He tells me I'm cold and calculating and clearly not the person he thought I was. I understand that he's not well. He finally did go to therapy. I explained a lot of his actions with that in mind at first. So, am I the jerk? He claims I have become one, taking his daughter away and leaving. You took your daughter and yourself from an unstable living situation. Sure, maybe it would become stable tomorrow, but you gave it a lot of time. His mental health crisis may mean he's out of his mind, but either he's still responsible for his actions or he's not. If he is, you left him because of his actions. Seems reasonable. If he's not responsible for his actions, then you left him because he's deeply in crisis for an extended period, and you can't continue to live that way or have your daughter live that way. I'm curious and concerned about your daughter's experience of this. Those are the people my heart goes out to the most, your daughter and your husband's new baby. Because everyone else, jerk or not, was some form of a volunteer for this. The kids get no choice but all of the consequences. But I don't think leaving your husband while he's in crisis is unacceptable, especially given the long duration and terrible experience for you of that crisis. Not the jerk. OP. Honestly, it's our daughter I'm mostly worried about in all of this. He clearly has changed a lot, no matter how much his mental health plays into it. He will no longer keep his opinions to himself when our daughter visits him, and honestly, I'm left to pick up the pieces when she comes back and slowly opens up about what her father has been saying during the visit. I'm really trying my best not to ever speak ill of him in front of her, and I basically keep my family in the dark because I don't want them to have an attitude towards him that could reflect on her. He seems to have no such issues, as I'm slowly finding out. He chews me up in private conversations, which I can deal with, but he also says stuff like, "After your mother kicked me out, I can't help you anymore," and "All I want is to have our family back," to our daughter, and I feel that that's horribly unfair. He's really wallowing in misery right now, and I do have sympathy for him, but he's burdening his daughter and painting me as an absolute villain. He still hasn't told her about the new baby, and honestly, I'm a little at a loss on what to do about that. Update: the divorce is in process, and I have not seen him in person for some 4 months at this point. He mostly keeps radio silence until it seems he has to unload some hurt on me. I've kept our contact to a minimum, only ever messaging him in things regarding our daughter or requesting him to react to official paperwork or to his electricity bills that I've transferred to him. Due to circumstances in which we started this separation originally, I paid most of his living expenses, mainly since I have a steady job and I get paid double his salary. He's still very much incapacitated by his mental health issues, and I wanted to alleviate some of the practical matters for him. Now that we are pulling everything apart, he has been, maybe purposefully, making this into a very slow and frustrating process. Currently, I still pay for his electricity, and he reimburses those bills for me at the end of each month. Sometimes he needs encouraging. Usually this leads to him messaging me all day, usually complaining on how I'm now raising our daughter, now that I have made him obsolete, his words, telling me to get a new dad to help with the job as soon as possible. He seems to try very hard to push my buttons by saying things like, "It must be very hard for you to send your daughter to someone who you loathe and hate so much." And if I make the mistake of losing my temper, even for just one word, he will turn immediately and tells me to calm down, stop spitting acid, and maybe we should continue our discussion when I'm not so wound up. I have mainly chosen to not engage in these conversations if and when they start. I have all of his outbursts in writing. I'm also currently under the impression that the coworker is not interested in a relationship with him anymore, and all of those who asked, yes, the baby is his by his own word. He still has not told our daughter about any of it. I've chosen to give him an ultimatum on the matter. I will bring it up one more time when we have our official meeting with our child welfare officer next month. That's the official route where we live, and if he still refuses, I will take it to myself to tell our daughter the truth. So many of you have encouraged me to do this for her sake and for the sake of our relationship, and I thank you for sharing your experiences with me. I've also contacted her school therapist and the curator and informed them of the issues she's facing now and the ones still to come. I'm hoping they will offer her some scheduled help since I know that she's shy on telling me everything. She is the most important thing in my life, and as sorry as I am for her having to go through this essentially because of my choices, I refuse to take all the blame now, and I'm ready to shift it to where it belongs. Personally, I'm a much happier person these days. I feel bursts of gratefulness and true happiness these days just by watching her eat her dinner and talk to me about her day at school. Even my houseplants are thriving, as silly as it sounds. I finally opened up about all of this to some of my friends and my siblings, and they've all been super supportive. And my siblings were clearly shocked, but both did bring up that they are somehow not surprised at how it went down. They seem to have seen things a bit more clearly from afar, just like this community did. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I feel like my daughter and I are going to be just fine in the end. I actually laughed out loud at the part where he told OP his affair partner was pregnant, but he can't believe OP doesn't want to fix the marriage in the same breath. Like, buddy, do you hear yourself? OP. Honestly, at that point, I had already made up my mind, and when I sat there and listened to his rant, I got the feeling that so much more was to come. When he finally told me about the pregnancy, I nearly laughed out loud myself. It was so absurd that it felt like the whole drama had been turned into a farce, like people would never believe me if I told them this story. And with that reaction, I realized that I was really mentally in a better place, one foot out the door and not ever going back. This was not my crap show to deal with anymore. Stop paying the electricity bill. Stop being sympathetic or empathetic with him. Do not engage. You need to do this for yourself. You owe that to yourself. OP. My friends have also told me to just drop the electricity contract for my plan and have him figure it out. Logically, I know it takes one call for him to make a new contract. He gives me excuses I know are false, but since I also know how passive his mental health issues have made him and how insurmountable small things can become, I find it so difficult to do this and go back on my word. There's also the fear how making our currently bad relationship even worse will inevitably reflect on our daughter and getting through all the legalities. I can't wait until it's all done and dusted. Update 2. I finally separated the rest of our finances, stopped paying his bills, and made official agreements on child support and custody, which remain shared for now as he went back on his word to give it to me uncontested. He did not agree to sign an official visitation agreement because he could not commit to it right now. I offered him every other weekend and half of all holidays. He has started to meet our daughter more often though, since nowadays she actually visits him on her own free will. It seems that their relationship has gotten a bit better lately, which I'm of course happy about. He has been absolutely terrible towards me though. He started a campaign of passive-aggressive texting after I asked him to be civil. Now every message is overly syrupy and filled with overflowing apologies. I ignored this until he decided to talk to me face-to-face when we went to sign the agreements. He told me his therapist told him to talk to me for closure and speak his mind, so he did. He once again just explained to me how hard this last year has been and how I tore the marriage apart, how he was not ready to accept this divorce and never will be, how nothing in his current life is what he wanted or asked for and considers it an insult if I congratulate him over the upcoming baby, etc. This felt really off, considering he had just moved in with his affair partner. He originally tried to hide this too and was evasive, but of course our daughter found out the next time she visited and told me. I know it's pointless, but I felt I needed to say something too, so I told him that he completely continues to ignore all my pain and the mental work I had to do over this whole thing, and I can't help the fact that my love died in the process. He says I didn't even try. He said even my parents were more supportive of him because they had exchanged pleasantries having met briefly a few weeks prior. His coworkers were more supportive than me. I told him to look in the mirror and that his little passive-aggressive game was so obvious. Clearly it hit home because he stopped immediately after. He has also been snooping over my dating life through our daughter and is very jealous and gets very verbally aggressive over it. Now the thing that brought me back to you tonight is that despite my life having turned so much better in the last few months and my daughter and I being happier than we have in a long while, I fell into an unexpected hole today. He was supposed to have her over this weekend but ended up canceling. The reason he gave me was different than what he gave our daughter, so I knew he lied to someone. Yesterday, he blew up on me over text that originally started as a discussion over our daughter's visit. He started the same old song of me being so petty over such a minor thing as his affair that was apparently not even a real affair at first. He wrote that my parents were right about me being too sensitive. He knows how low of a blow this is since he's been supporting me through my issues with my parents and validating all of my gripes my whole life with, "You are too sensitive." I told him how low that was and that he does not get to quantify my pain, and he totally lost his marbles to the point where I had to stop reading his messages because I was afraid I would start to cry in the office. This morning, our daughter runs to me, crying happy tears and jumping of joy. Her father had sent her pictures of her newly born little sister. I congratulated the new official older sister, and we gushed over the pictures a little. Throughout the day, my mood has just been awful. I've gotten messages from my family asking how I am, because daughter of course told everyone, which is totally okay, but it's starting to weigh on me. I've been tired and easily irritated. All of a sudden, I felt like I had no one to talk to, no one who would really understand, someone unbiased, an adult to talk to. Those have been my hardest moments in all of this. I lost my best friend when we fell apart, and whenever I feel like I really need to open up and spill my heart, it reminds me of how alone I feel. Is this a normal reaction? I've been fine and very emotionally cut off from him for so long, and somehow the birth of this baby sent me into a sudden nosedive today. I felt like I needed to tell all of this in my lowest point in a long while. So, thank you for reading. This mental health crisis sounds like an awfully convenient excuse for a lot of bad choices. This poor woman, I hope she can find her peace. Am I the jerk for kicking my husband out of the house for repeatedly arguing in front of my family? Background. My husband and I are both argumentative people who have sort of tough personalities. I'm a lawyer and he's retired military. We argue frequently about facts or politics, but these are usually good-natured and humorous. But I try not to do this if we're socializing or at family events, since no one wants to watch another couple argue. Almost a year ago, we hosted two of my older relatives at our house for a few days. All was well until the topic of social media came up at dinner. I mentioned something about how Twitter was a toxic waste dump, full of hostility. My husband decides this is something to argue about and says that's not true. So we start arguing about it, and he's getting angry. Our guests were clearly becoming uncomfortable and quiet. Eventually, he furiously says, "This conversation is over," gets up and abruptly leaves the room. I'm left in awkward silence and have to apologize to my relatives. After they left, I told him how upset I was, that he made us look like two psychos arguing over something so stupid, and that wasn't a normal way to act with guests. He apologized, said he wouldn't do it again, and admitted to me that Twitter was awful and didn't know why he even argued about it. 6 months later, we were visiting with another relative and he did the same thing, about the same topic. I don't know how it came up, but he angrily argued until it was awkward and uncomfortable. After that, I was very upset. Once again, he apologized and promised me it wouldn't happen again. About a month ago, he told me on his own accord that he was thinking of deleting Twitter because it's such a cesspool. Then at Thanksgiving, hosted by my cousin yesterday, he does it again. We're sitting at the table having a pleasant conversation, and my brother mentioned that after the initial argument where he stormed out of the room, it had concerned my older relative so much that she had told my family she was concerned for our marriage. So the Twitter topic came up, and once again, he starts arguing about it in a hostile manner, till the table was uncomfortable and quiet. Finally, I said, "Are you seriously going to gaslight me again on this topic? Did you not just tell me you were thinking of quitting Twitter because it's such a toxic waste dump?" And he says, "Not in those exact words." I was furious he did this to me again, and we didn't speak on the ride home or for the rest of the night. Today, he says nothing to me and doesn't bother to acknowledge it or apologize. I feel like I'm married to some big, domineering gorilla that likes to make displays to show he's in charge and make everyone bow down to his foul moods. He doesn't even actually disagree or care about this topic, so I don't know why he does this. Finally, I boil over and tell him I want him to leave the house. 3 strikes and you're out. He just asks, "For how long?" And I said I don't know. He then stormed around angrily, got his stuff, and left. Everyone sucks here, because you feed into him by continuing the argument instead of just telling him you're not going to argue. But he's also crappy because he starts arguments over things that he thinks he should have an opinion about. You both sound insufferable and annoying. Everyone sucks here. He's in the wrong for starting these arguments, but you're in the wrong too for continuing them. One of you needed to accept the other's opinion and back down, yet neither of you did. Your husband seems to be worse though, I'll give you that. Last year, my girlfriend ghosted me. Yesterday, I found out why, and now I feel numb but grateful. At the end of September of 2022, my girlfriend ghosted me. She disappeared and blocked me on her phone and all of her social media accounts. I tried reaching out by email, but no response there. This past year has been melancholy. Every now and then, I sent her an email telling her how much I missed her. Yesterday, I ran into her sister that she used to live with, and she told me what had happened. Around summer of last year, the sister's deadbeat boyfriend, no job, no money, no ambition, moved in with them, and my girlfriend and the deadbeat started hooking up. Eventually, she stole her sister's boyfriend, and her family disowned her because of it. When she ghosted me, my now ex-girlfriend moved to another town with her new boyfriend where they now live together. Her sister told me that even though they don't talk anymore, the sister still follows my ex on social media. She explained that around March of this year, 2023, my ex placed a personal ad. The sister told me that in the ad, my ex described me, things I do, my career, place in life, ability to support her, as her ideal partner. I asked if my ex broke up with her boyfriend, and the sister told me they are engaged and living together. We hugged, and I wished the sister a happy Thanksgiving. When I got home, I couldn't believe what I heard. As I thought about it, I realized that my ex was, and still is, monkey branching. Most of all, I wondered how she could do that to her own sister. I wondered if she was actually a closet narcissist. While we were together, she suffered from social anxiety, so I constantly reassured her and comforted her. Last night, I did some research about links between social anxiety and narcissism. In my research, I learned about covert narcissism, and my ex fits the symptoms and behaviors exactly. I realized now that I had been dating a covert narcissist. When I step back and think about it, I feel like I dodged a bullet. We talked about getting married, having kids, and raising a family. I can't imagine the train wreck I would have gotten into. I don't have any ill will against my ex, and I wish her the best. I do know that I don't want to see her ever again. I'm grateful that she's no longer in my life. Last night I couldn't sleep. I'm grieving now, but I know I'll be all right. I was married to a covert narcissist. The damage that he did to us was incredible. They literally take you apart and then declare war to ruin you if you leave. She did you a favor. My Karen neighbor demands I let her kids play in my yard even after they graffitied my house. My father bought the house in the 80s and held on to it as different developments sprung up around it. I inherited it 3 years ago and have been living in it since. I have 2 acres, while my surrounding neighbors have maybe half an acre if they're lucky. The house is fairly small, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, so I have a very large front and backyard. I use maybe 1/5 of the backyard as a garden, and the rest is basically an empty field. I've always loved kids, so I was happy to let my neighbor's kids play in the field with the understanding that they would respect the property. Most of the kids are great, very respectful, and understand that this is not their yard. The problem is with my neighbors to the right. They have 5 kids, who are 1, 3, 5, 5, and 7, who generally run around unsupervised. They don't come to my yard to play very often unless the other kids are playing soccer or baseball. The 7-year-old is in charge, as much as a 7-year-old can be, but obviously he can't replace parental supervision. 5 days ago, the kids were playing baseball, and he must have lost track of the 5-year-old at some point, because when I came home from work, I found their names sharpied onto my wall, along with some rude drawings. I found their parents the next day and asked them to pay for the paint I'll need to cover it up. They were very offended, accused me of lying, and said they weren't going to pay. If this had been all, I probably would have let it slide and covered the paint since it would only be like $20. But later that day, one of their 5-year-olds decided it would be funny to throw rocks at my house. There are several dents in the siding where the rocks hit, and 2 of my windows are broken. From what I've been quoted to fix, it's about $800 to $900 worth of damage. I talked to the parents, who accused me of doing it myself to make their kids look bad. I've decided those 5 are not allowed to use my yard until the damage is paid for, which I think is more than fair. When they came by this morning to play soccer with the other kids, I politely explained the situation and said they would have to leave as they aren't allowed to play here anymore. The 7-year-old was very upset, more sad than a temper tantrum, which is understandable, but the 5-year-olds were both very angry. About an hour later, their mom came by and went off on me, yelling at my doorstep about how I'm a horrible person who can't stand kids because I'm bitter and can't find a husband. I'm standing my ground either way, but a few other parents came by and seemed a little frustrated by my explanation as to why that family is no longer welcome, which is making me question things. Am I the jerk for banning them from playing here? Edit. To answer some common concerns, I will be installing cameras. I dug my dad's old trail cams out of the garage, so I'll put those up either tonight or tomorrow. I am aware of the liability issues with kids playing in my yard. I'm willing to risk it. I don't want to put up a fence. I think they're ugly. The property line is clearly marked. I will not be banning the entire neighborhood unless I absolutely have to. Edit 2. I also have a meeting scheduled with my attorney to discuss the possibility of drawing up a liability waiver for the parents to sign. Forgot to put that in the last edit. They're also usually unsupervised. Typically, there's a parent or 2 hanging around anyway, and I work from home, so the kids know to knock on my door and ask me to watch them if their parents are busy. I'm also looking into an umbrella policy that would be more likely to cover any injuries that occur. You're the jerk. As a mother of 6 myself, our kids need a place to stay and have fun. You can't expect us to take them to the park every single day. Kids are supposed to run around the neighborhood and get in trouble. That's how I grew up, and believe it or not, I turned out just fine. If you live in a neighborhood with other people, like it or not, you're going to have kids running around. You know, being kids. Trust me, no parents like dealing with the grumpy old neighbor who complains about everything that their kids do. If it were up to people like you, my kids would be stuck inside 24/7, being quiet as a mouse. I've had neighbors complain before about just about everything. My kids screaming, leaving trash in their yards, my dogs barking too much, you name it. I tell them the same thing every time. Don't like having neighbors? How about you move out to the middle of nowhere where you belong, since you're unable to deal with living in an actual neighborhood? My kids have been playing outside all day, and the boomer neighbors are sitting on their deck right now. I already know they're going to be calling the HOA again like they always do. What they don't know is that I'm friends with the head of the HOA, and every time we talk, we laugh about him and his BS. Bottom line, if you can't stand living next door to a family, just go live somewhere rural where we won't have to deal with your complaining.
Well, don't you sound like a pleasant neighbor?
Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let them keep playing in your yard or not? Please let us know.
I'd get a couple of big, mean, hungry dogs is what I'd do.
I called the police on my entitled son. For context, I, female 35, have a son that was born when I was married to my first husband. I was young when he was born, and his father was horrible to me. My ex-husband's mom was constantly in our lives, trying to take over and make my son hers. I left my ex when I was in my early 20s, and my ex-mother-in-law ended up taking my son into another state and filing for custody. She went to a state that has grandparents' rights, as ours didn't. I fought her for years and ended up getting remarried to my current spouse, and we had a son together when I was in my mid-20s, a boy who is now 10. I see my oldest son only during the summer and the holidays. I finally got the court case moved to our local court, and the judge says that I was wronged and ordered shared custody and visitation. My ex-mother-in-law made a huge deal that my son needed to stay with her during the week because of school, and the judge went with it so he could finish high school in an environment where he was familiar. My ex-mother-in-law has ruined my son, just like she did her own. She's given him any and everything he's wanted, she's taught him no respect, and kept him very sheltered. She literally jumps on people if they don't give him his way. So in turn, my son is loud, violent, and all around sad to be around. So he came up to visit during Halloween, and he acted awful. My husband's mom lives with us, and she isn't well. She's doing chemo. She's been a big help with my youngest son so that I could help my husband with our business. My youngest is a delight to be around. He's polite, funny, and respectful. We've taught him that you don't expect anything unless you work for it. I went and picked my oldest up, and his attitude started right away because his phone died and the charger I had in the truck didn't fit his phone. He wanted me to get off the interstate and buy him an overpriced one from a truck stop or something. I told him no, I'd get him one when we got into town, and that next time he needs to remember to bring one for the house and for the car. I suggested making a packing list ahead of time. Now my youngest was in the back with his tablet playing quietly, and my oldest realized the tablet was plugged into a car charger. He asked his younger brother for the charger, and I told him it's an Apple charger. It won't work with your Android. My oldest said, "You don't know that. Shut up." Next thing I know, he's forcibly taking the Apple charger and is trying to fit it into his phone. When it didn't work, he threw it into the back seat of the truck. My youngest just plugged his tablet back up without a word, but I told my oldest that his behavior wasn't acceptable. Fast forward to the next day. Older son is still fuming at me because I made him wait, bad-mouthed me to his grandma, etc. I left to go to the office, as did my husband, and my mother-in-law was going to take my youngest son to the treat trail for Halloween. She asked other son if he wanted to go, and he told her to kick rocks. My husband told him not to speak to her like that. I knew trouble was brewing, I just didn't know how bad. Apparently, mother-in-law and younger son went to the treat trail, and older son called mother-in-law to tell her he wanted Hardee's, also known as Carl's Jr. My mother-in-law told him there was food at home and that it would be a while before she could get in. Older son told her that she needed to bring it right now. My mother-in-law told him to either eat what was at the house or wait. He lost it on her and hung up on her. Mother-in-law called me, and I told her not to reward his bad behavior. I told her we had plans to go out later to eat. He could wait. So when mother-in-law gets home, she tries to open the door and her key won't work. Older son comes to the door and tells her that he's angry and doesn't want her in the house, so he locked her out. He told her to wait outside until he either felt like opening the door or until I came home. My mother-in-law told him to open the door ASAP. She called me crying, and I went off. I called older son and told him he didn't make the rules in my house. He went by them, and that he would be punished if he didn't open the door. He really thought I was playing. I left the office and went home. Cue disaster. I opened the door, and older son was there on the other side. Mother-in-law and younger son had been waiting in her car, and older son was blocking threshold, saying that he had told mother-in-law to keep outside, that it was her punishment for telling him no. I told him to move now. I tried to push past him, and he pushed me back outside, threatening to lock us all out. I went to go inside again, and he put his hand in my face and pushed me back out. I told him, "That's it, I'm calling the police." He didn't think I was serious, but I did it. I told the dispatcher that my older son was refusing to let me into my own home and had put his hands on me. Older son goes into a rage, and I mean a pure rage. He comes out of the door, screaming and threatening, tries to take my phone, and the lady tells me she'll send someone ASAP. I mean, I had to literally fight him to keep him from breaking my phone. Then he goes after my younger son and starts saying horrible things to him. My mother-in-law locks herself and my younger son in the car as my older son proceeds to kick and punch the car. He even cracked the windows in the window shield. Older son goes after mother-in-law just as my husband pulls up. He's telling mother-in-law this is her fault, that she just needed to do what he said. My husband tries to restrain older son, and older son is screaming that he will have my husband arrested, etc. The police came, and they immediately restrained older son and put him into the back of the van. My husband and I explained the situation, and I told the officer that my ex-mother-in-law had shared custody. So the officer calls ex-mother-in-law and tells her what's happening. He puts her on speaker, and she immediately puts the blame on us, saying we provoked him and we were mistreating him. The officer told her that didn't seem to be the case, as a neighbor had come forward and said she had called 911 also, plus had a security camera that showed the entire thing. Ex-mother-in-law jumps to saying the police here can't do anything with older son as he's a resident of another state, blah blah blah. The cop tells ex-mother-in-law that's not the case, and it seems like older son needs to learn his lesson. The officer hangs up, and ex-mother-in-law immediately calls me. I put her on speakerphone. She's not the smartest, yet thinks she is. If I had older son arrested, then I would be a bad mom, and that he was justified in what he had said and done. I asked her about the true son thing, and she said he was my only heir, as he was my first son, and from my first marriage, and divorce is a sin. I told her that's not how it works. I told her I'm tired of him taking my home over and trying to hurt others. Long story short, he spent 3 days in jail before a hearing, and the judge asked me what I wanted to do. So older son is being sent to a group home. My ex-mother-in-law fought the entire way, but had no hold because both officers and my neighbor gave statements. Now ex-mother-in-law is saying I'm ruining his life and I'm a bad parent. She's also accusing my husband of mistreating him. Okay, so I've noticed a lot of comments saying I abandoned my son, gave him to his paternal grandma, etc. That's not the case. I live in a Commonwealth state with no grandparents' rights, and she had 25 plus years of residency in a state that does have them. When I left her son, my ex-husband, she became furious. In her home state, a grandparent has the right to intervene in the child's life during the parent's divorce, and she used that to her advantage. A judge in her home state granted her visitation with my son, even though he was born in my state. During a visit, she filed for custody and was granted it until the divorce was finalized. The divorce took over 2 years due to my ex not wanting to sign papers and being difficult, so older son was almost 10 when it was finalized. I got something called a change of venue accepted, and the custody case was transferred to my local court, where it should have been there the entire time. Of course, ex-mother-in-law wasn't going to willingly hand him over, so she kept filing appeals, continuances, and other things to prolong the case. It eventually went from family court to circuit court, which is also known as high court for that judge to decide. By this time, older son was at the legal age where he could have a voice in court and was established at school in ex-mother-in-law's area. The judge said that he could finish school there and then be transferred up here for school. My ex-husband had signed his parental rights over to his mom, and the judge had to take that into consideration. He did this to avoid the state going after him for support. The local judge ordered ex-mother-in-law to do therapy as well as older son, and there were issues with them not complying. My ex-mother-in-law ruined her own son. He's in his 30s, won't work, doesn't drive, and expects her to keep him up. I did nothing wrong aside from leaving my horrible ex-husband. The recent psych evaluation said older son lacks empathy for others and has delusions of grandeur, meaning he thinks he's better than others. Ex-mother-in-law also had to do a session, and the therapist said ex-mother-in-law is similar in regards and that her expectations aren't realistic. They both have superiority complexes. My ex-mother-in-law used to lock me out of my own home because she wanted to punish me or limit my contact with my own son. When she took him, I did contact local and state police, but they couldn't go into her state without the permission of officials there, and by then she had filed paperwork. She had nothing to use against me, would not abide by court-set visitation, etc. I have 2 homes, a business, and I'm very self-sufficient. My family life is good, not dysfunctional. We've done everything we can to incorporate my son into our family, but he's refused to accept us. I'm sorry I was a crappy mom for not allowing him to lock me out of my own darn house. Holy cow, you did the right thing. Your son is a threat to everyone in your house, and his grandmother is doing him no favors. Get him the help he needs. Don't abandon him, but don't risk your family's safety. Karen is going to name her baby Danger if it's a boy, or Tinkerbell if it's a girl. One of my friends found out she was pregnant a few months ago, and she's really excited to become a mother. I'm happy for her, and I think she'll make a great mom, but there's one problem. She wants her baby's name to be unique and special, but the way she's going about it is terrible. What I mean is, the name she plans on using is awful. If it's a boy, she's going to name him Danger, Daynger. If it's a girl, she's going to name her Tinkerbell. I wish I was joking. I asked her if she was 100% sure, and I suggested that if she was dead set on those names, to make them the kid's middle name. When she asked why, I told her flat out that the kid's gonna get bullied if she names them that. I know just how crappy kids can be. I got bullied for my name, and I changed it when I was 19. She got really upset and told me I was being unsupportive and I was being a crappy friend. She's been ignoring my text ever since, and it's been more than a week. I'm starting to feel kind of guilty over what I said. Was I the jerk? Update. We had a conversation over call. I decided to tell her about my experience and how I was bullied for years because of my name, Shaylee. And it turns out she's been going through a lot. Birth complications run in her family, and she's been really stressed out about it. Along with finding out that her boyfriend, now her ex, of 3 years, has been exchanging daily texts with a coworker of his. I had no idea about this, and she expressed regret for taking out her feelings on me. I carefully brought up some of your points and suggested using the name Belle for a girl, with Tinkerbell as a nickname. She thinks that's cute and liked the idea. I also mentioned maybe using Dane as a first name with Danger as a nickname, which she wasn't quite as happy about. She did decide to use Danger, still spelled with a Y, as a middle name, which isn't nearly as bad as using it as a first name. On the bright side, the kid can tell people, Danger is my middle name. Thank you for all your advice. I really appreciate the help. Not the jerk. She needs a reality check. She's naming adults here. These names won't set her kids up for the best shot at life, and she needs to accept that. Not the jerk. I'm so sick of people assuming that anyone who disagrees with them is unsupportive. Being a supportive friend does not mean being a yes man. It means having your friend's best interests at heart. You do want your friend and her kid to be happy, therefore you are the most supportive. Any name should fill a person with confidence, as people will have to keep introducing themselves again and again throughout their life. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for these names that she wants to give to her babies or not? Please let us know. I'm so thankful that my parents were chill about my name. If my mom had named me Tinkerbell, I think I would still be holding a grudge against her. Am I wrong for divorcing my ex-wife over kids? I want to preface this by saying that I have no intentions on getting back with my ex, and I'm in a very happy relationship with my now fiancé. I'm 46 male, married my ex-wife, 45 female, when we were 26 and 25. At that time, we were both on the fence about having kids. I knew since college that I wanted to retire early, and my dream of having financial freedom was what really made me realize that having kids didn't fit into the life I wanted. I was trying to find the right time to talk to her about it, but over the next few weeks, she started dropping hints that she wanted to have kids. She started showing me photos of her friends starting their own families, commenting on our nieces and nephews, joking about her getting or being pregnant. That one freaked me out, and even bought me a book on the joys of fatherhood that she thought I'd find interesting. I sat her down and asked her if she wanted kids. She admitted that over the years she had grown to want a family. We had a conversation about it, and I realized that neither one of us was going to change our minds. I didn't want to keep her from what she wanted in life, so I brought up divorce. She really didn't want to divorce and kept trying to get me to want to have kids, but I stuck to what I wanted and we ended up separating. I obviously still loved her, but that's why I wanted to divorce. We were still young, and she could find someone to have the family she wanted with. I didn't want her to resent me for forcing my life choices onto her. Even after I filed for divorce, she still didn't agree with me and dragged it out as long as she could, so the divorce took almost 2 years. I dated over the years, but never really found someone that I could see myself sharing the rest of my life with until I met my now fiancé 4 years ago. Apparently, my ex-wife struggled with dating as well and hasn't remarried yet. She has a son, but the kid's dad isn't in the picture. She recently reached out to me and asked if we could meet to catch up. I talked with my fiancé about it, and she thought it would be a great way to clear up any bad blood between us, so I agreed to meet up with her for coffee. Things seemed to be going well until she brought up her son. She asked me if I was going to be a part of his life as a masculine influence, and I told her I was glad that she was able to have a kid, but that it still wasn't something I was interested in. She tried to change my mind by saying that we could be a family again. She kept trying to convince me, and I kept trying to change the subject. I admit that I got frustrated because things weren't going as I had hoped they would, and I told her that I was happy with my fiancé and that I was not interested in her. She started to insult my fiancé, so I left. I thought what happened was crazy. When I agreed to meet with her, it never even occurred to me that she might want to get back together, considering how long it's been, and, I'm not single. She kept messaging me, so I blocked her, and I don't plan on talking with her again. I was talking with my sister and her husband about it, and they said that while I'm totally right for rejecting her now, that it was a jerk move on my part to divorce her in the first place, and that I was now being a jerk again by not being a part of her kid's life. They both agreed that my ex was right for wanting to work it out. They said it's my fault that her kid doesn't have a father, and that if I had given having kids a chance, I would have changed my mind. I just don't agree that kids are something one should compromise on. I just don't see how it's possible for it not to be a bad situation for everyone involved that breeds resentment. I don't know my ex's kid at all, and I don't agree that it's my responsibility to step up just because his biological dad didn't. I asked some other friends and family, and they agreed with my sister. So now I'm not sure if what I did was wrong, and if I'm just wrongfully justifying it to myself. You're not wrong. You did the right thing in divorcing her over having very different expectations for your lives. If you divorced her over you not wanting kids, I can't understand why she would think that you would want to be with her or be willing to fill a fatherly type role with the kid that she did end up having with someone else. Your sister and brother-in-law are crazy. Kids are not something to compromise on. They are a 2 yes, 1 no situation. OP. She used my social media posts of me with mine and my fiance's nieces and nephews as proof that I wasn't against having kids. I like kids, I just don't want any of my own. She thought I had changed my mind about kids because of the posts and said I was being a hypocrite by refusing to be in her son's life the way that I was in my nieces and nephews' lives. What they were arguing is that if I hadn't divorced my ex-wife, she could have convinced me to have kids, and then her kids would have a father figure. I was the one who pushed for divorce and broke our potential family. Hopefully, there's zero chance that you're the one who got her pregnant. Have a lovely remarriage and treat your fiancé like she is the only one for you. That little meetup with your ex, it cast a shadow in her mind. Help that shadow dissipate for good. Yes, low contact, the others forever. OP. We divorced 16 years ago, and her son is 11, so there's no possible way he could be mine. Thanks for your concern, but my fiancé is fine. No shadow was created. We are both very secure in our relationship, and she was the one who encouraged me to meet up with her so she could apologize to me for how she lied and talked crap about me. Even though that's not what ended up happening, my intentions were clear and never changed. I'm about 98% sure I know who the kid's father is, and if I'm right, then I don't really blame him. I obviously feel bad for the kid, but he was, in my books, still a kid as well. The guy I think is the father is currently about 30, but he was a recent high school graduate when my ex got pregnant. My ex and him got engaged, he moved away suddenly, and nobody could get a hold of him. And then it came out that my ex was pregnant. He was in a trade apprenticeship program before he left, but I don't know where he is or how he's doing now. Update. So, some things have happened. My ex-wife somehow got a hold of my fiancé's phone number. She contacted her yesterday and made false accusations that I cheated on her when we met up for coffee. Obviously, my fiancé didn't believe her and just blocked her number. This morning, my sister showed up uninvited to my fiancé's house with her kids, demanding to talk. We don't live together, and I wasn't there. My fiancé originally wasn't going to let them in, but my sister sat on her porch and refused to leave. It was cold and windy, and the kids didn't have coats on, and since it's not their fault, she ended up giving in. She put on a show for the kids and made some coffee to prepare herself for whatever crap my sister was going to say. My sister started a whole spiel about how if she, my fiancé, really cared about me and not just my money, then she would do what's best for me and leave. My sister claimed that since I'll always be connected to my ex, that I will be forever unhappy if I'm with anyone else. Apparently, if my fiancé doesn't leave me, it's proof that she's only with me for my money, and that it's obvious that my ex and our kid, which, what the heck, it's not even my kid, would actually use the money in a godly way. My fiancé laughed in my sister's face and just stared at her until she left. My fiancé and I are both a little confused by what she said. I am better off financially than my fiancé, but not by that much. I'm also not religious, so even if I did get back with my ex, me and my money would still not be godly. We know she's crazy, but again, why did she think her plan would do anything? After my sister left, my fiancé called me and told me what happened. I called my sister to tell her, 1, leave my fiancé alone, and 2, that she's crazy and delusional. She defended herself by saying she knew what was best for me and was just protecting me from going through with the wedding since my fiancé was obviously taking advantage of me, and that since I'm under her spell, I can't protect myself. I again told her she was crazy and delusional and told her that I never wanted to hear from her or anyone who's siding with my ex again, and to please pass that message on. Every time a family member or a friend messages me about it, which has been 6 so far this morning, I ask them what their thoughts on the matter are and if they side with my ex or sister, and I just block them. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding? I, 28 female, am entangled in a wedding drama of epic proportions. My recently engaged best friend, who's 29 female, asked me to be her maid of honor, and words can't even describe how happy I was. We've been inseparable since kindergarten, and I was ready to make her big day unforgettable. I spent nearly $700 on her bachelorette party, buying cute outfits for everyone and renting a party bus with all-you-can-drink drinks. The other girls pitched in, but I'm the most financially stable, so the majority fell on me. I helped plan the wedding of her dreams, right down to contacting the vendors and setting dates when she was too busy. I made the save the date and invitation cards. What I'm trying to say is that I did a lot for her. And then, 2 weeks before the wedding, my best friend asked me to step down and said that her future sister-in-law would be taking care of the role of maid of honor. I was ticked, and we got into a huge argument over this, where I, admittedly, said some things that I wasn't proud of. Since then, I've received texts from our friends, best friend's family, the groom's family, and even sister-in-law telling me I'm a drama queen who needs to get over herself and that this isn't about me. This has really gotten to me, and I need to know, was I in the wrong? Edit. Thank you to everybody who's given me advice. I'm gonna wait a week and let emotions cool off, then I'll have a sit-down talk with my friend about this. Update. I called her this morning and asked to talk. She agreed, and we set up a meeting on Thursday at a local coffee shop. I'm a bit concerned because she sounded really shy and nervous on the phone. Hopefully it goes well, and I can do an official update with happy news. Did you ask for the money back? OP. I tried asking for some of the money back, but she called me money hungry and said I never told her it was conditional. Have you talked to sister-in-law? OP. Once or twice before this went down. She's been texting and calling me to tell me what a self-centered jerk I am, but I haven't replied. Did she give you a reason for why she asked you to step down? OP. Sister-in-law is an introvert and might never get to be a maid of honor. I have a large friend group and might be a maid of honor at one of their weddings. Is she close to sister-in-law? OP. She isn't particularly close to her and even would complain about her at times. Sister-in-law is the youngest member of the nearby extended family. She's 18. I don't know if that changes things, but my friend felt like sister-in-law was coddled. A few people have mentioned the groom's family pressuring her, and I think it's likely. I thought it was extremely out of character, but one person said she might be feeling pressured to conform to the family since she wants them to like her. I'm not sure what the actual reason behind her actions are, but hopefully I can sit down with her soon and talk it out. Also, she paid for the base dress, and I was going to pay for alterations. I don't want to expose her online because we've been friends for over 20 years, and I don't want to hurt her like that. I'm still hoping we can be friends. It does make me feel much better that so many people are on my side, even if it's just on Reddit. I was genuinely starting to feel like I was going crazy. Update. I met my friend at around 9 a.m. yesterday at a local coffee shop. She looked really bad. Her hair was super greasy and unkempt. She had really bad eye bags, and she seemed totally exhausted. When I asked her what was wrong, she just apologized. I kept prodding, and it turns out that her in-laws are real pieces of work. Apparently, they've been harassing her for nearly 3 years about having sister-in-law as the maid of honor at the wedding, and when my friend chose me, they went ballistic. My friend said she thought she'd be able to handle it until the wedding day, but then mother-in-law threatened to ruin her wedding dress unless sister-in-law was the maid of honor. My friend panicked, and that's when she told me I would no longer be maid of honor. She apologized for the money-hungry comment and said that she was just in such an awful place mentally that hearing me mention the money made her really upset. The reason all our friends were attacking me is because they knew about the mother-in-law situation, as my friend never mentioned it to me because she didn't want me to step down because of mother-in-law, and they thought I also knew the whole story. And as for the fiancé, he was completely in the dark. He doesn't have a good relationship with his mother already, and my friend didn't want to be what destroyed that relationship. When my friend told me all of this, I felt awful. I didn't know she was enduring 3 years of harassment because of me. I immediately apologized, and she apologized, and we both cried a lot. When the tears stopped, she pulled out an envelope with nearly $200 and gave it to me. I originally refused, but she insisted, so I took it. I encouraged her to tell her fiancé because keeping this from him wasn't helping anyone, and if he decided to cut off mother-in-law, then that was his decision and not hers. After talking a lot more about future boundaries, our relationship, and the wedding, I decided I would go to the wedding and we'd still be friends. I know my friend didn't handle this in the best way, but I've known her for over 2 decades, and she's practically my platonic soulmate. That's not something you should throw away because of this. Originally, that was how my update ended, but as I was typing this, I received a text from my friend saying that fiancé disinvited his mom and practically half the family, including sister-in-law, because of their treatment of my friend and me. She asked if I would be willing to be the maid of honor again, and I said yes. I just want to give a final thank you to Reddit for helping me through this, and I hope all of you have a nice night. Am I the jerk for leaving Thanksgiving because my partner's creepy brother was there? I, 25 female, and my partner, 26 male, have been friends for a few years and started dating more seriously earlier this year. This was the first time he's invited me to Thanksgiving. He called it a Friendsgiving when he pitched it. His parents, who I adore, were hosting it, but it was mostly their friends and his friends, not extended family, as he put it. I guess for whatever reason, I assumed his brother wouldn't be there. I've tried really hard to be nice to his brother, but he's always creeped me out with his staring, hovering, etc. But he reads as neurodivergent. I think he's diagnosed ADHD, but it seems a lot more severe to me. But I tried to be nice. Then last year, my partner asked if his brother could come with us and our friends on our big summer Renaissance Fair road trip, and I told him how uncomfortable around his brother I am, and I didn't want him to spoil this trip. In nicer words than that. And my partner assured me he wouldn't. But he kind of did. I felt like I was babysitting a kid for most of the trip, but whatever. It was a few weeks, and after that, my partner posted something on Instagram and his brother commented, and I went to snoop on his Instagram as one does, and saw that he had drawn a bunch of creepy, gross drawings of me while we were on our road trip. I mean, very obviously of me. I brought it up to my partner, and he mostly seemed to brush it off. I didn't exactly say how uncomfortable it made me, but I also don't feel like I should have to spell that out. I've been pretty clear that I don't want to be around his brother after that. I've had dinner with him and his parents occasionally, but his brother usually isn't there or he stays up in his room. He might come down to get a plate or whatever we're eating and pass by, but he never stays. I thought because my partner conveyed to him that I'm not okay with being around him. Anyway, Friendsgiving today, I was honestly having a blast. I got up early and spent all morning making side dishes. I was enjoying spending time with our friends and his parents. And then his brother turns up and gets sat at the kids' table with us, right next to me. It isn't even that he was there, but that my partner didn't feel inclined to warn me or make sure we weren't sat together or anything. I feel terrible now, like I overreacted, but I just got up to leave. I went over to his coat and I got the keys, and when he asked what I was doing, I might have raised my voice a bit and told him he could either spend time with me or his creepy brother, which was maybe not the right thing to do in front of this whole 20-person gathering. We also drove together, so I kind of left him stranded, but he was at his parents' house with his side of the family, and we live nearby. Someone probably gave him a ride. I went to my sister's about 40 minutes away. He hasn't tried to call or text me. Did I overreact? Am I the jerk? I'm staying with my sister, and she's ready to go into this situation swinging a baseball bat. But I knew she'd be like that, and I wanted some more candid opinions from people who aren't already on my side. The main advice I'm getting is to be more explicit with my communication, and this is honestly something I've been working on for a while. My family isn't a directly and verbally express your needs family, which isn't an excuse, but hopefully is an explanation. I try to remind myself that no one can read my mind and failed in this case. I really shouldn't have blown up at the party, and I'm extremely aware of that. I wish I had stepped out with my partner and reminded him of my feelings about his brother and given him a chance to correct it. I'm sure we've all gotten angry and wished we could take it back. And I guess I should have assumed he would be there. My partner specifically pitched it as some of his friends and some of his parents' friends, and if he had just come down to get a plate like he normally does, it would have been fine. His brand of neurodivergence includes not liking big crowds of people. Also, this guy is 24. I forgot to include that in my main post. He's not a kid. Anyway, I hadn't really had the perspective to consider the long-term feasibility of just avoiding my brother-in-law. I'm going to text his parents to apologize. I should call, but I don't want to demand their attention if they're really upset with me, and explain a little where it was coming from. I took screenshots of the Instagram posts that I'll share with them if they ask. I'm going to suggest a pause with my partner through the holiday season, at the very least. If he doesn't dump me first, that is. I don't think this relationship is feasible if he isn't going to do the bare minimum of trying to keep me safe. Not the jerk. And let's be clear. Your partner's parents raised both of their sons to be this way. Your partner is just better at hiding it. It's time to confront him straight up. If he isn't willing to accept that his tolerance of his brother's behavior is disrespectful and disgusting, then he's gotta go. Or just dump him without confronting him. I don't fault people for breakups via text when behavior is that egregious. Not the jerk. I'd yell too if my partner had been that dismissive of something that is a very serious issue. He should never have put you in that situation. If he doesn't apologize to you in essay format with the full MLA works cited page, then he's gone. Seriously though, a partner should never violate boundaries like that, especially ones you very clearly stated. Not the jerk. I do think you should have assumed his brother would have been at Thanksgiving at his parents' house, so it's weird that you assumed otherwise. That being said, your partner doesn't seem like he takes your concerns seriously. It sounds like he's probably going to continue blowing off any concerns that you have about his brother, so I don't know why you'd think he's going to choose you over him. Ever. You're the jerk. So this guy, who you yourself said is neurodivergent, drew some pictures of you that you didn't like, and now you don't feel safe, and you are yelling at your boyfriend, who had nothing to do with it, in front of their whole family at Thanksgiving? And you really think that you're the one in the right? Good thing for them, they won't have you and your drama there next year. Hope your ex can find a decent girlfriend who will laugh at his brother's drawing. At least that's what I would do in this situation. He obviously has a crush on you, and instead of hitting on you, he's drawing pictures of you. If that makes you flip out the way you've described, you should probably get some professional help. Everyone sucks here. Yes, the brother sucks. Yes, your boyfriend should probably be more proactive. Yet, you blowing up out of seemingly nowhere isn't cool. 17 of those people probably had no idea what happened. The way you handled the issue was rude, especially to the hosts. It's pretty ridiculous to not expect the guy to be at his own house, especially if you didn't say anything and didn't ask if he would be there. You could have chosen to not come to the Thanksgiving at all. You could have clearly and directly asked your boyfriend to run interference. Or you could have stood up and moved seats. In the long run, you're the jerk to yourself if you don't learn to speak up and voice your thoughts and opinions when they come up. It sounds like you didn't fully and honestly express yourself at least 3 times. People aren't mind readers. Not everyone thinks the same way. You can't just hope your boyfriend will know exactly what you want when you are using nicer words. If you don't want to be around the brother, you should straight up say, "I don't ever want to be near your brother again. If he is around, I will leave." That's a healthy boundary. Don't be shy to make your boundaries 100% clear, otherwise you will end up having cycles of resentment and blowups. Resentment and blowups with many partners and friends in the future. Am I the jerk for asking the men to clean up after Thanksgiving dinner? I'm 42, female. My husband is 37, male. We were invited to his sister's house for Thanksgiving. I love to cook and entertain, so I volunteered to make a lot of dishes. Other people brought food also. I cooked for 2 days straight, and today, the morning of Thanksgiving, I suggested to my husband that he should gather up all the men to clean the kitchen after the shared meal, since literally only the women were the ones who cooked and prepared everything. Divide and conquer, if you will. He agreed to do so. We had a great meal. After dinner, everyone sat around chatting with coffee and were having a good time. At some point, the men all transitioned to the living room to watch football, while the women began helping my sister-in-law clean her kitchen. The kitchen connects to the living room, so it was evident what was going on. On the way home, I asked my husband what happened and why he didn't pitch in to help with the cleanup. He said I have a victim complex and I'm choosing to be in a bad mood. I told him I'm not in a bad mood, I'm just bringing up what was previously discussed and agreed upon, and asked him if he thought it was fair. He then proceeded to tell me how there are certain jobs he has to do because he's a man. I said that's not the point here. I'm not talking about prior situations or arguments, just this evening in particular. Am I the jerk for thinking that all the people, in this case all of the men of the family, who contributed nothing to the meal, should have had a hand in helping clean it up afterwards? Not the jerk. If I acted like this, my wife would tell me to get takeout and eat by myself next year. Not the jerk. You had an agreement, he ignored it, and then tried to throw in your face other things he does. The audacity. Throw away the whole man. If that isn't an option, make it clear that he is in charge of both cooking and cleaning for Christmas and stick to it. If you keep allowing him to push you over, it's never going to change. Not the jerk. And I would die on this hill. I would never offer to help host a party that benefits him again. Anecdotally, my husband made everything for Thanksgiving because he loves to cook and he refused any offers of help. So I put all the leftovers away and cleaned up everything. It's only fair. I assume he was scared to tell the other men they needed to clean up because they are also jerks, so he conformed. Then he didn't want to admit to you that he was a scaredy cat and acted even more like a jerk. This is divorce-worthy. He's making it clear to you that he has no respect for you and what you two agreed on. He would rather go with these other worthless men who want to watch football while you work hard to clean their mess. If my husband ever did anything like this, I would have gone in there and called him out in front of the other losers and made him come help clean. Fortunately, my husband did all of the cooking and cleaning on Thanksgiving while I watched movies with the kids. People need to realize that moms need breaks too sometimes. So he's a liar, he's ungrateful, and he's a jerk. Why would you ever cook for him again? Unpopular opinion, but I'm extremely jealous of the guys who lived 70 years ago. Even minimum wage back then was a salary they could support their entire family with. You could buy a house, even just working in fast food. And on the holidays, your wife wouldn't flip out on you if you didn't do enough cooking or cleaning. She just showed her love for the fact that you provided for the family by taking care of all that. And she enjoyed it because she appreciated you and wanted to show you that. I would give anything to go back in time to when things still made sense. It's baffling to me that men continue to behave like lazy bums and yet still have significant others. And then they have the nerve to argue. Of course you aren't the jerk. Your man-child husband is. This is precisely why I stopped participating in the family furnishment of these holidays. I, 52 female, work the same if not longer hours than the men in my family. They do not cook or help clean up. My 80-year-old mother still chooses to run around waiting on my father and brothers while they sit around watching TV, acting like captains of the universe. I'll be darned if this is how I'm going to spend a day off. My Karen sister-in-law demands I pay for her vacation. Huge mistake. I, 28 female, have a great relationship with my niece, Ava, who's 9. She loves me and I love her. She has no issue staying with me for days on end. So I asked my brother if I can take her on a trip with me to Disney for a week. I knew she would love it since we watch Disney movies together all the time. He wanted me to ask sister-in-law. Definitely. She said they will let Ava go if sister-in-law can come along too. I asked her if it was because she didn't trust me. Sister-in-law said no, she just wanted to come with us. I told sister-in-law she can come along with me as long as she pays her own way. We can all share the room, so she will have to get tickets, airplane, and her own ticket to Disney. She said she didn't have the money to pay for it, and since I don't have kids or family, and I have good income, I should pay for her to come along too. I didn't like it. Technically, I do have the money, but I don't like the way that she said it, and I have my own financial plans. I told her I won't be paying for her. She said then she won't let Ava go. Though disappointed, I just canceled the idea. My brother called me the next day asking why I canceled the trip, and Ava was looking forward to it. I didn't tell her about the trip. I told him my conversation with sister-in-law. He was upset with sister-in-law, but didn't have the money to pay for her. He asked if I would cover, and I said no, just on the principle alone. I felt sister-in-law was forcing my hand, and I didn't like it. Now my brother is calling me a jerk for refusing to cover sister-in-law and canceling the vacation that I promised Ava. I didn't promise her this. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. First, you didn't tell Ava about the trip, so either brother or sister-in-law are lying about Ava being upset when she doesn't even know about it. Or they told her about the trip and now she really is upset. I totally understand a parent wanting to accompany on the trip, but if the brother wants you to include sister-in-law on a trip that she wasn't invited on, then they can pay their bill. Me thinks sister-in-law vested interest in going on the trip had to do more with getting a free vacation rather than accompanying her daughter. Not the jerk. The sheer audacity to demand her trip be paid for. What, she's never been to Disney or something? She's been missing this her whole life and saw an opportunity for a free ride? So entitled. It's too bad you couldn't get a trip with Ava this time, but I hope you can spend more time with her in the future without sister-in-law imposing and mooching. I found out why my husband hides his best friend from me, and I don't think there's anything I can do about it. I, 26 female, have been married to my husband, Dylan, who's 26, for 3 years. We got together when we were 17, but we've known each other since the 4th grade. I love my husband. He's the total package. Funny, sweet, smart, and attractive. He's made my life amazing, and he's who I fully intended on spending the rest of my life with. We attended all the same schools from the time we met up until college. In that time, we've both made our own friends groups. He's been more connected with his friends than I have, and because of that, I've become a part of their friend group as well, I'd like to think. In that time, I've been at around 50% of their total group hangouts, mostly because of my job, but sometimes I'm just straight up not invited. I didn't question any of this because, hey, they're his friends. He doesn't see them nearly as often as he sees me, and it's not my business. My husband met his best friend, Cairo, who's 27, long before he met me. I knew almost nothing about Cairo up until recently. He wasn't at our wedding, nor did he attend any of the same schools as us, and I was under the impression he wasn't friends with anyone in our group. I thought all of this was because of his line of work, as I was told that he traveled a lot. Last year, me and my husband went to a barbecue hosted by another couple in the group. Cairo was there. I didn't recognize him at first, but when I realized who he was, I was honestly kind of shocked. I'd seen him in person before, but he always kept a very good distance from me, which I'm now realizing was intentional. Anyways, he's totally stunning. He looks like he could be a supermodel. When I attempted to make conversation with him, he seemed really nervous and totally shut me down after a few sentences. When I mentioned this behavior to anyone else, they also shut me down, saying things like, "That's just how he is," or "Maybe you said something that offended him." In short, no one would tell me anything about Cairo at all. Any conversation that involved him was a no-go. At the end of that night, I tried talking to Dylan about his behavior. He told me Cairo didn't like me. I was confused because I'd hardly seen him in person at all, let alone actually talk to him. The excuse my husband gave me was that Cairo disliked me because I cheated on my husband once in college, and Cairo was too stubborn to let it go. I've seen Cairo less than a dozen times since then, mostly at birthday parties, huge get-togethers, and on one occasion, he came to our house to watch a football game with my husband and a few of their other friends. Anyways, a few weeks ago, my husband went fishing with his cousin. That same night, I had some of the girls in our friend group over for a girls' night type thing. Lily, who's 24, was scrolling through some social media. I was glancing over her shoulder when I saw a selfie of Dylan and Cairo sitting next to each other in a hot tub. The selfie had been posted maybe 30 minutes ago. I asked Lily about what I had seen, and she went pale. She tried saying nothing, but I snatched the phone from her and I went to the profile that posted the photo. The profile belonged to my husband. It was a private profile, and scrolling through the photos, most of them were jokes or memes, but the rest of them were photos of him and Cairo. Either they were hanging out alone or with the rest of the group, minus me. Most of the photos, they seemed way too close, too touchy, or doing things that seemed too personal for friends to be doing. I spent a good 10 minutes looking before I couldn't take it anymore. I was horrified. All of the photos were dated to nights that my husband told me he was working late, hanging out with his relatives, or were times that he had told me he was doing something else, and obviously hangouts I wasn't invited to. Lily just sat there looking dumb. She didn't say anything, but all the girls were looking at us like a bomb had just gone off. They clearly knew what I had seen, and their reactions were enough to confirm exactly what I was afraid of. I was livid. I started yelling. Lily was crying, and the rest of the girls were freaking out. When I started to calm down and demanded that they explain to me what was going on, Lily told me everything. Dylan and Cairo had been essentially dating behind my back since before we even got married. They got together during a 1-month break me and Dylan had during college, and they stuck together ever since. They all knew, and none of them told me until I found out the hard way. Cairo wasn't at our wedding because he felt guilty. He avoided me like the plague because he felt so guilty. They arranged group meetups in a group chat that I wasn't in because they all like Cairo enough to spare his feelings. Even the guys in the group felt the same way about him, apparently. Cairo was never as distant as I thought he was. He was just being hidden. Dylan was hiding from him because he didn't want me to find out that they were together. By the end of it, half of us were crying, and everyone who wasn't was apologizing to me. I was so angry. I made them swear they wouldn't say anything to Dylan or anyone else. I kicked them all out and cried myself to sleep. I was basically in denial, like this was all some sort of a sick prank. My husband didn't come home until the next morning. He told me all about the supposed fishing trip that he had gone on. I didn't say anything about what I knew. I guess he could tell that something was up because he kept asking me what was going on all day, every 5 minutes. Eventually, I just told him I'd been in an argument with my sister. By the end of the week, I was totally numb. Last night, while my husband was busy handing out the candy, I saw a notification pop up on his phone, and since I knew his password, I opened it. It was a text from Cairo. I looked through the conversations they had had, and it confirmed everything. It was devastating. Dylan texted Cairo the exact same way that he texted me. He told Cairo he loved him. Every sweet thing he said to me, he had said in his conversations with Cairo too. I was hardly mentioned. I put his phone back down before he noticed. Dylan is at work now. I don't know what to do. I could never imagine myself leaving Dylan because he's such a loving partner and a good man. But I can't see myself winning in a competition against Cairo if that's what it comes down to. I can't even make myself be disgusted or angered by Dylan. I love him too much. I'm not even upset with Cairo, but I'm so hurt. I don't want to risk losing my husband, and I don't want to share him. I called Lily and my sister this morning and told them about what I had found. They both asked what I'm going to do, and I had nothing to say. I don't know what to do. Update. Dylan came home last night around 10. I had a whole speech prepared to confront him with, but I could only end up saying, I know about you and Cairo. I'll spare the details of the conversation because it's still raw, but he left around midnight. He only took a few of his things. I haven't spoken to him since, aside from him telling me he was coming to get more of his things, and after our conversation, I've decided to go through with divorce. I've collected all the necessary information, and I'll be getting in touch with a lawyer later. Also, I did not cheat. It was a huge misunderstanding between me and my husband that led him to believe and tell people that I cheated. I don't even know if what Dylan said about Cairo's dislike for me was true. Update. Yes, I'm leaving Dylan. No, I'm not going to sue him for everything he has. I will no longer be speaking to anyone from that group. I may have been naive, but I'm not stupid. No, I still don't know why they chose to betray me like that, and I don't intend on finding out. Yes, while his parents were accepting of him, I don't think they would have been okay with Dylan marrying him. Update. 8 months have passed since I first posted. I've been working really hard on getting better for myself, and since then I've done okay, until a week and a half ago. 10 days ago, I heard from one too many distant mutual friends that Cairo left Dylan. It makes me so happy to hear that he got what he deserved. The man he had to have has left him. Unfortunately, Cairo hasn't received this end of the karma and is still just as perfect as the day I found out he was having an affair with my husband. However, I'd be lying if I said that I cared or had any ill will towards him. I don't, just my ex-husband. If I saw him in a parking lot, I'd sprint over, shake his hand, and tell him I'm glad he delivered my ex-husband his much-deserved karma. I don't know how Dylan is doing now, but I hope he sees how it hurts, being betrayed like that. Anyway, you can consider this the end of the line. No more updates, no nothing. All I can and will do from now on is heal.
Imagine your cousin wants to get famous on YouTube and is demanding that you help her do it. And on top of that, she wants to do it the unethical way. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap and come have a listen. Karen and I are already waiting for you.